Welcome to Buddhism Seeds, where every Zen story not only guides you into deep sleep, but also plants seeds of peace and mindfulness in your heart. Here, we don't tell stories just for entertainment. We remind each other of the vital lessons hidden in the simplest moments of life. Modern life is noisy and burdened with worry, leaving our minds weighed down by endless thoughts. In those very moments, meditation and Zen stories become a bridge that brings us back to the stillness within. Listening to a Zen story before sleep not only relaxes the body, it also nourishes wisdom, soothes emotional wounds, and lets sleep arrive gently and deeply. Every story chosen at Buddhism Seeds is brief, yet carries great meaning. It not only helps us let go of the day's troubles, but also teaches us to see life with clearer eyes and a more open heart. Here, every word is told slowly and calmly, like a temple bell ringing in the night, guiding us back to dwelling in the present moment. And now please gently close your eyes, listen to your breath, and let your mind begin a soft journey into stillness. The first Zen story I want to share with you tonight is The Broken Jade Vase, a simple tale imbued with deep wisdom, opening the path to sowing seeds of peace in your heart. The first light of dawn spread softly across the Ganges. Small waves lapped the sandy shore, reflecting glittering light like shards of broken mirrors. The riverside village of Satavana began to wake children. Chattered women carried water. Ox carts creaked along. In that village lived a young man named Rahula. Rahula was not wealthy. His house was a shabby thatched hut with cracked clay walls. But inside that poor home was something he cherished above all, a jade vase. It was the only keepsake his father had left. Since his father's passing, Rahula had guarded the vase as a treasure, placing it on the altar and carefully cleaning it every morning. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, Rahula sat on the porch, lifting the vase in both hands and gazing at it in the early light. The vase was clear, its emerald hue glistening, refracting light into shimmering rays. Rahula's eyes shone with pride. From inside, his mother, Sati, stepped out with a cane. Her figure was thin, her gray hair tousled, but her eyes were still warm. "My son," she said gently. "Your father repeated this again and again. The vase is only an external object. It is beautiful, precious, but it will break one day. Don't let your heart be bound to it." Rahula smiled, hugging the vase to his chest. "Mother, I know. But this vase is not just an object. It's the trace Father left behind, the honor of our family. When I look at it, I feel more worthy. If one day it's gone, I fear my life will have nothing left." Sati sighed. The river wind stirred the bamboo behind the house, rustling like a sigh that went on and on. That day, Rahula brought the vase to sit with his friends in the village. Some were weaving baskets, some carrying firewood. They all paused when the jade's light reflected into their eyes. "Rahula, your vase is truly beautiful," one friend exclaimed. "I've never seen anything so precious. In this whole village, surely only you have such a thing." Rahula smiled with pride. He turned the vase so the light danced on the ground. "This is my family's treasure. My father said it's worth a whole herd of white elephants. One day I'll trade it for a prosperous life for my mother and me." Beside him, Kevin, Rahula's childhood friend, frowned slightly. "Rahula, are you sure the vase will bring happiness? I see you polishing it every day, admiring it as if you live for it instead of for yourself." Rahula laughed, but the laugh was a little strained. Kevin, you don't understand. If the poor like us have nothing precious to hold on to, what else can we cling to? This vase gives me faith that the future is still bright. Kevin quietly picked up a handful of sand from the riverbank and placed it in his palm. He squeezed. The sand fell through his fingers. See, Rahula, the tighter you hold, the more it falls away. Hold anything too tightly, and in the end, it slips away. Rahula frowned and hugged the vase tighter. No, the jade vase is different from sand. It's precious and sturdy. It is everything to me. That afternoon, when Rahula returned home, Sati was sitting by the hearth. She looked at her son with eyes mixed with love and worry. Rahula, I hear people in the village talking. They're envious of the jade vase. You must be careful. People can do anything when greed arises. Rahula gave a faint smile. Don't worry, mother. I'll protect it. No one can take it. Sati laid her thin hand on his. My son, sometimes it's the very act of holding tight that makes us lose what we have. If one day the vase breaks, will you still be Rahula? Rahula froze. He had never considered that. He looked at the vase and replied softly, I won't let it break. Never. Night fell. Moonlight shone on the vase, making it glow like a jewel. Rahula lay in bed, eyes fixed on the vase in the corner. In his heart, the vase was not just an object. It was life itself. He whispered, Father, I'll keep it forever. I won't let you down. Outside, the river kept flowing like an unseen reminder. Everything passes. But Rahula could not yet hear it. In the days that followed, the story of the jade vase spread through the village. Some admired it, others envied it. Many times people asked Rahula to let them see it. He showed it off without hesitation, his heart full of pride. One morning, as Rahula took the vase to the river to wash it, Kevin came again. He looked at his friend, his gaze serious. Rahula, I see you trading yourself for a lifeless object. Remember what the master taught. Everything born will pass away. Clinging only brings suffering. Rahula set the vase down and looked up in rebuttal. Kevin, you always speak in philosophy. But think about it. If we hold on to nothing, what are we living for? This jade vase is not just an object. It is the soul of my family. Kevin shook his head. No, Rahula. The soul of your family is love, the memories your father left in your heart. The vase is only a symbol. Don't let the symbol obscure the truth. Rahula fell silent, but in his heart, the bond tying him to the vase only tightened. Golden sunlight flooded the dirt road leading to the village market. Today was market day, when people from all around gathered in Satavana to trade and meet. Shouts of vendors, squeals of pigs, children's laughter. Together, they made a lively scene. In the noisy crowd, Rahula walked with an unusual air. In his hands, the jade vase glittered, drawing everyone's eyes. People buzzed and pointed. There, Rahula's vase. I heard it's worth a whole herd of white elephants. How could a poor family have something like that? Hearing the chatter, Rahula felt a surge of pride. He lifted his head high and raised the vase so the light would shine through it for all to admire. An old man approached, eyes sparkling with curiosity. Rahula, may I see it up close? I've lived more than 60 years and never seen such a treasure. Rahula smiled and lifted the vase higher. Sir, this is the treasure my father left me. It is precious not only in material value, but as the soul of my family. The crowd gasped. A few young men whispered among themselves, envy flashing in their eyes. One murmured, if we had that vase, we'd never worry about poverty again. Another sneered, If Rahula slips for just a moment, who knows who it will belong to? Rahula didn't hear or pretended not to. Pride drowned out everything else. He imagined the day he would sell the vase to buy a wide piece of land, a sturdy house for his mother, and an honored place in the village. When the crowd thinned, Kevin stepped forward. He didn't look at the vase. He looked straight into Rahula's eyes. "Do you really think your happiness lies in this vase?" Rahula frowned. "There you go again with your philosophy, Kevin. Don't you see everyone admires me? I'm no longer a wretch. I have value thanks to this vase." Kevin quietly bent down and picked up some sand from the market ground. He held out his hand to Rahula. "Look, when I hold it loosely, the sand stays in my palm. But when I tighten my grip," he slowly clenched his fist, and the sand fell through his fingers. "The more it slips away." Rahula snapped, irritated. "This vase is not sand. It's sturdy. It lasts through generations. Sand is worthless, but the jade vase is a treasure." Kevin looked at his friend with sad eyes. "It's not about sand or vase, Rahula. I mean this, whatever we hold too tightly, will eventually slip from our hands, not because it's weak, but because our clinging makes us lose it." Rahula was silent for a moment, then shook his head. "You don't understand. To me, this jade vase is everything. It's my father, my faith, my honor. If I lose it, I'll have nothing." That afternoon, Rahula went home. Sati sat on the porch, worry clouding her eyes. "My son, I hear the village talking. They're envious. Some are even thinking of bad things. Don't take the vase outside anymore. It's too dangerous." Rahula set the vase down and smiled to reassure her. "Don't worry, mother. I'll guard it with my life. No one can take it." Sati held his hand, her voice trembling. "But what if one day you yourself break it?" Rahula stiffened. "I won't let that happen. I swear to you I'll protect it to the very end." Sati's dim eyes grew sad. She knew that oath wouldn't make her son any safer. It would only make his heart heavier. Day by day, Rahula clung to the vase even more. Each morning he polished it. Each night he set it beside his bed, watching it glow in the moonlight before he slept. Villagers whispered that Rahula had become a slave to his own treasure. One day, over a meager meal, Sati spoke softly. "Rahula, do you remember what the master taught? All things are impermanent. Even a gem will one day dissolve. Only a peaceful heart remains." Rahula bowed his head, but inwardly he protested, "If I don't have the jade vase, will I still be at peace?" The next week there was another market day. Unable to resist, Rahula brought the vase again. This time the villagers' eyes held not only curiosity, but also desire. A wealthy merchant approached and reached out to touch the vase. "Young man, this is very valuable. I'll give you 10 bags of gold for it." The crowd gasped. 10 bags of gold were enough for a lifetime of comfort. But Rahula immediately clutched the vase to his chest. "No, this is my father's treasure. It's not for sale." The merchant scoffed. "Don't be foolish, boy. Your father left it so you could have a future. If you cling to it forever, you'll cling only to poverty." Rahula flushed with anger. "You don't understand. This jade vase is the soul of my family. No gold can compare." The merchant walked away, shaking his head. The crowd whispered, "He's truly foolish. He won't even take 10 bags of gold. One day the vase will shatter, and he'll be left with nothing." Hearing this, Rahula's heart ached, but he gripped the vase even tighter, as if afraid it would vanish before his eyes. That evening, Kevin came to visit. He looked at his friend. his gaze pensive. "Rahula, don't you see people no longer look at your vase with admiration, but with greed? You're putting yourself in danger." Rahula exhaled. "Kevin, you don't understand. When I hold this vase, I feel I'm no longer a nobody. I feel my father still lives in it. It's my only faith." Kevin sat beside him and spoke slowly. "Rahula, your father isn't in the vase. He's in your memories, in your blood, in the teachings he left you. If one day the vase breaks, your father will still be here. But if you equate yourself with the vase when it breaks you, too will shatter." Rahula turned away, unwilling to listen. He hugged the vase tighter and whispered, "No, it won't break. I'll keep it forever." In the days that followed, Rahula's sleep was no longer peaceful. He dreamed of the vase cracking, shards of jade scattering. He panicked, trying to gather each piece, blood seeping from his hands. But the more he picked up, the more shards there were. He jolted awake, drenched in sweat. In the darkness, the vase still glowed under the moonlight. Rahula sighed in relief and held it, like life itself, but deep in his heart, fear had begun to sprout. One afternoon, as Rahula carried the vase by the river, a child ran past and nearly collided with him. Rahula's heart leapt. He clutched the vase and shouted, "Careful! Do you realize you almost broke my treasure?" The child burst into tears and ran off. The mother pulled the child back, bowing in apology. But her eyes could not hide reproach. For a vase, you would scold a child like that. Rahula bit his lip and said nothing. He knew she was right, but he couldn't let go. Standing nearby, Kavin sighed. "Do you see, Rahula? You're losing yourself. A vase makes you angry, makes you tremble with fear, distances you from everyone. It's no longer a treasure, it's a chain." Rahula shook his head, his voice tight. "No, it's my only faith. If I lose it, I'll have nothing." Kavin placed a hand on his friend's shoulder and spoke softly. "Rahula, let it go, before it leaves your hand on its own." Rahula turned away, eyes red. He couldn't bear to hear more. In his heart, the vase was not just an object, it was life itself. He didn't know that this very clinging was leading him to the edge of a cliff. That afternoon, dark clouds covered the sky. The Ganges wind blew hard, howling through the bamboo by the shore. Rahula sat in the small house, hands trembling, as he held the jade vase. In his heart, fear grew larger and larger. The shattered dreams of the previous night, his mother's and Kavin's warnings, the covetous looks of the villagers all gathered into a storm in his mind. He looked at the vase and whispered as if speaking to his father, "Father, I won't let anyone take it. I swear. I'll keep it even if it costs me my life." Sati walked in holding a bowl of cold rice. Seeing the panic in her son's eyes, her heart twisted in pain. "Rahula, you're afraid. Not of people, but of the vase itself. It's controlling you. Let it go, my son." Rahula shook his head and hugged the vase tighter. "No, you don't understand, mother. This is everything to me. If I lose it, I'll have nothing." Sati sat down beside him, her voice trembling. "You still have me. You still have yourself. You still have the life ahead of you. Why would you pour everything into something so fragile?" Rahula bit his lip and said nothing. That night the rain poured down. The thatched roof leaked. Water dripped onto the earthen floor. Rahula set the vase on the table, carefully cushioned it with a cloth, and kept watch. The rainy night stretched on and on. He didn't dare sleep, his eyes never leaving the vase. Near dawn, exhaustion crept in. He propped his chin on his hand. His eyes drooped. In just an instant, his hand slipped and struck the edge of the table. The vase tilted. A sound rang out, a cold, sharp crash. Rahula jolted up, his heart stopping. The jade vase had shattered into hundreds of pieces scattered across the wet floor. The morning light glittered on each shard, beautiful to the point of cruelty. Rahula rushed down and knelt among the fragments. He trembled as he picked up each piece, his hands bleeding. No, impossible. Father, I swore. I promised I would keep it safe. How could this happen? His voice broke apart, lost in the sound of the rain. Sati hurried out. Seeing the scene, her eyes blurred with tears. Rahula, my son, you must stay calm. Rahula looked up, eyes bloodshot, voice choked. Mother, it's broken. Everything is gone. Father will resent me. I have nothing left. I'm nothing but a failure. She took his shoulders, but Rahula pushed her away. He slammed his fist to the ground. Blood from his palms mixed with the rainwater, spreading in red blotches. No, I lived for it. I put everything into it. Now that it's gone, what is there left for me to live for? Sati burst into tears and gripped his hands tightly. My child, listen to me. The vase is only an external object. Your father will not blame you. He would be more heartbroken to see you lose yourself over a lifeless thing. Rahula trembled, rain and tears running down his face. But inside he felt torn apart. News of the broken jade vase spread quickly through the village. Some felt regret, others sneered. See, any treasure will break in the end. And he turned down 10 bags of gold. Now he has nothing. Those words cut into Rahula's heart like knives. He avoided everyone, shut himself inside, and couldn't bear to face anyone. Kavin came looking for him. He entered to find Rahula sitting on the earthen floor, the fragments laid out carefully in front of him. Rahula looked at his friend with empty eyes. Kevin, it's broken. I've lost everything. Kevin sat down and gently picked up a shard, holding it to the light. Rahula, it's still beautiful. But now it reminds you of something more important. Everything has a time to dissolve. That is the truth you must face. Rahula shook his head, his voice hoarse. No, I can't accept it. I lived for it. If it's gone, I have no reason left. Kevin placed the shard in Rahula's hand. Rahula, the vase is broken, but you are still here. Your heart is still beating. Your mother is still with you. How can you say you have nothing? You lost an object, not your life. Rahula choked up, hugging the shard as fresh blood seeped from his hand. But it hurts so much. I feel like I shattered along with it. Kevin looked at him for a long time, then said softly, Yes, Rahula, because you identified yourself with the vase. When it broke, you thought you broke too. But the truth is, you are not the vase. You are more than that. You must learn to stand up without it. That night, Rahula went to the riverbank. He carried the remaining shards in his arms. The waves beat steadily. The moonlight glittered on the water. He sat on the sand and sobbed. Is this all that's left of a life, Father? I've failed you. Within his crying, he seemed to hear the river whisper, I keep flowing even when the banks collapse time and again. The vase has broken, but life has not stopped. You will go on if you know how to let go. Rahula fell silent. He looked up at the moon reflected on the water. The moon is full, but some nights it wanes. Waves rise, but some days they are calm. Perhaps everything is like that, born existing, then passing away. He looked back at the shards in his hands. They still shone, but they were no longer a perfect vase. For the first time, Rahula saw that even in breaking, There was its own kind of beauty, he whispered. Perhaps. Father doesn't need me to keep the vase forever. He only needs me to understand, in this life, nothing lasts forever. Tears still fell, but they were less bitter. In his heart, the pain had not vanished, but cracks were opening for the light to enter. When he returned home, Rahula sat beside his mother. He spoke softly, his voice tired. Mother, I'm afraid. I put my whole life into one object. Now it's broken, and I don't know who I am. Sati stroked his hair, her eyes full of love. My son, it's precisely when you lose something that you see clearly. You are not the vase. You are Rahula, my son, a person with a heart that still knows how to love. Don't let an external object define you. Let your heart be free. Rahula buried his head in his mother's lap and cried like a child. In that crying there was despair, but also the seed of letting go. The morning sun spread gold across the fields, but inside Rahula, darkness still lay heavy. He had cried himself out the previous night. The shards still lay on the table, sparkling like a wound that had not healed. He knew he could not sit still forever. A vague calling urged him out of the house, out of the village. He walked along the dirt path into the western forest, where people said there was an ancient temple, where the elder monk Samita lived in seclusion. Rahula entered the forest. Fallen leaves covered the path, birdsong echoed, and the scent of damp wood and wildflowers drifted on the wind. The deeper he went, the lighter his heart felt, as if nature were opening its arms to hold the pain he carried. After a long walk, he stopped before a small temple with a mossy roof and brick walls, colored by time. The sound of the temple bell rang softly, lingering in the breeze. On the veranda sat an old monk on a worn mat, eyes half-closed, face serene. It was Samita. Rahula approached, knelt, and choked out, "Venerable sir, I've lost everything. The jade vase, my father's treasure, has shattered. I have nothing to cling to. Please save me." Samita opened his eyes. His gaze was as gentle as a cool stream, yet as deep as the sky. "My son, the jade vase is broken, so why do you say you've lost everything? You still have your mother, your legs to walk, your heart to love. You only lost an object. But what I see is that what you truly lost is the clinging in your mind." Rahula broke into tears. "But it hurts so much. I feel as if I shattered with the vase." Samita nodded, speaking slowly. "That's right. Because you believed you and the vase were one. When it broke, you felt yourself dissolve. But look again. You are not the vase. You are the one who watched it break." Samita picked up a fallen leaf and held it before Rahula. "Do you see this leaf?" "Yes, I do. It was once green, swaying in the wind, shading the branches. Now it has turned yellow and fallen. Did it betray the tree? Did it make spring disappear? No. It simply followed the natural course, born, growing, withering, and falling. Your jade vase is the same. It once shone beautifully, was a treasure, and then it reached the time to break. That is the cycle of all things." Rahula was silent. Tears fell again, but this time without the previous struggling. They sat in silence. The forest breeze blew gently. Leaves rustled. Samita continued. "You lived for the vase, but try closing your eyes. Are you still breathing?" Rahula obeyed and answered softly, "Yes, I am." "Then do you see your life did not end with the vase? You simply forgot that life is in you, not in an external object." Rahula opened his eyes, looking at the elder monk, trembling slightly. "But I still can't let go. In my heart, it is still everything." Samita smiled and placed an old clay bowl in Rahula's hands. Hold it. Rahula gripped it tightly. Now squeeze even harder. Treat it like a treasure. He did, gripping so hard his hands shook. How do you feel? I'm tired and afraid it will fall. Exactly. Now open your hand and rest it lightly on your palm. Rahula loosened his grip. The bowl lay still, not heavy, not tense. Samita nodded gently. Do you see, when you clench, you suffer and worry. When you loosen, you are at peace. Life is the same. Keep what's appropriate. Love what's appropriate. Cherish what's appropriate. But do not grip tightly, because the tighter you grip, the more you suffer. Rahula stayed silent for a long time. Inside, a space opened. For the first time since the vase broke, he felt something bright awaken within. He asked quietly, Venerable Sir, how can I learn to let go? Samita pointed to the courtyard strewn with dry leaves. Sit down, close your eyes, and breathe. Don't think about the vase. Don't think about the pain. Just watch the breath, the way you would watch a river flow. When your mind returns to the breath, you will see the pain is just a cloud, and it will pass. Rahula followed his words. He sat, inhaled, and exhaled. At first, his mind was full of the past's screams, but gradually, with each breath, the pain settled like a lake after the rain. He heard birds chirping and the wind moving through the trees. For the first time, his heart felt lighter. A tear rolled down his cheek, but it no longer burned. It was the tear of gradually letting go of the first steps of acceptance. He opened his eyes and looked at Samita. I feel lighter. Just a little, but it's real. Samita smiled kindly. That is the beginning. Letting go is not done in one moment. It is breath by breath, day by day. Whenever you remember the vase, breathe and smile. See that it taught you the lesson of impermanence, and be grateful for that. Rahula bowed. This time his tears fell, but his heart felt warm. He no longer felt he had lost everything. He felt he had found something else, freedom in the heart. Night fell. Rahula stayed at the temple. The night bell rang, lingering in the forest wind. He lay on a simple mat, and sleep came gently. For the first time in many days, he did not dream of the breaking vase. He dreamed of a wide field bathed in moonlight, and he walked empty-handed, yet felt complete. The next morning, Rahula prepared to leave the temple. He bowed to Samita. Venerable Sir, I will carry your teaching with me. I will practice letting go one day at a time. Samita nodded. Remember, my son, life is like a river. No one can hold water in their hands, but anyone can drink and can see their reflection. Live as one who drinks and reflects, not as one who wants to keep the entire river. Rahula pressed his palms together, his heart swelling with deep gratitude. He knew the healing journey was long, but now he had a path. That morning, as Rahula left the forest temple, the sun rose over the bamboo groves. Early light filtered through the leaves, scattering glittering patches along the dirt path. Rahula walked slowly, but his heart had changed. His steps were no longer heavy. They were light, as if he had set down an invisible burden. He did not carry the jade vase anymore, for it had shattered. He carried no shard either, only Samita's teaching live, as one who drinks and reflects, not as one who wants to keep the entire river. When Rahula returned to the village, many looked at him with curiosity. They whispered, "That's Rahula. He had a precious jade vase and broke it. Pitiful, but also foolish. If it were me, I'd have sold it for gold. Now he has nothing." Rahula heard clearly, but he felt no anger or shame. He simply smiled and bowed to each person. In his heart, He knew they saw only the vase, not the lesson the vase had brought. He reached home. His mother Sati was sitting on the veranda, mending a torn shirt. Seeing her son, she stood up surprised. "Rahula, you look different, no longer frantic. Where have you been these past few days?" Rahula knelt and took her hands. "Mother, I went to Samita's temple. I cried, I sat, I listened, and I understand now. The jade vase is gone, but I am still here, and I must learn to let go." Sati burst into tears and threw her arms around him. "My son, I don't need a jade vase. I only need to see you at peace. That is enough." The next day, Rahula went to the riverbank where the children played. He sat down and called them over. "Come here, I'll tell you a story." They ran to him and gathered around. Rahula picked up a small stone and tossed it into the river. Ripples spread out in circles traveling far. "Once I had a jade vase. I thought it was everything. Then one day it broke. I was heartbroken and thought my life was over. But then I met a monk who taught me that nothing lasts forever. Objects break, but the heart can remain whole if we know how to let go." A child asked Brother Rahula, "Were you sad when it broke?" Rahula smiled. "Of course. But sadness is like these ripples. It rises and then fades. If we cling to it, we sink. If we watch it pass, we are at peace." The children's eyes widened and they nodded. That afternoon, the adults gathered around Rahula. Someone asked Rahula, "The jade vase was so precious, and you broke it. Don't you regret it?" Rahula looked at them, his eyes bright yet calm. "Before I thought my life was bound to the vase. But when it broke, I realized happiness doesn't lie in external things. It lies in how we see and how we let go. If I don't learn that even 10 vases would still bring suffering." Another person scoffed. "But if you'd sold it, you'd have had 10 bags of gold. You could live comfortably for life." Rahula replied slowly, "Gold can buy food and clothing, but gold cannot buy peace. I would rather lose gold than lose my heart." The crowd fell silent. Rahula's words rang like a bell, making everyone reflect. Kevin came and sat beside him. "My friend, at last you understand." Rahula smiled warmly. "Yes, Kevin. I used to think you spoke lofty philosophy. Now I see that letting go is the closest path. You were right. The tighter the grip, the more we lose." Kevin placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "I'm happy for you. The jade vase is broken, but a new Rahula has been born." That night, Rahula sat by the hearth with his mother and told her everything: the dreams, the pain, the meeting with Samita, and the lesson of impermanence. Sati listened, her eyes shining with pride. Rahula said softly, "Mother, I understand now. Impermanence is not a punishment. It is a truth that helps us cherish. If I keep clinging, I will suffer. If I let go, I will be free." Sati squeezed his hand and smiled through her tears. "Your Father in heaven must be smiling too. You've truly grown." In the days that followed, Rahula no longer hid at home. He helped villagers harvest rice, carried water for the elderly, and taught children to read. He lived simply and humbly, but every word he spoke carried the depth of someone who had walked through suffering. Gradually, people stopped talking about the vase. They began telling each other the story of a Rahula who once suffered from attachment and then awakened by learning to let go. The story spread, becoming a reminder to many generations. One sunset, Rahula stood by the river, watching the waves roll under the evening light. He whispered, The jade vase is broken, but I have not. I have just found another kind of vase, my heart, that knows how to let go." He closed his eyes and breathed softly. In his breath, he felt a serenity he had never known before. Rahula's story does not end with the pain of a young man losing the most precious treasure of his life. It also serves as a mirror for each of us in this life who doesn't have a jade vase of their own. For some, it's a romance. For others, fame or wealth. For others, still dreams not yet realized. We cling to it thinking that if we lose it, we will have nothing left. But life teaches us a truth both harsh and compassionate. Everything is impermanent. Impermanence is not a curse. It is the natural law. Flowers bloom and wither, the moon waxes and wanes. Summer's brilliance must give way to autumn's chill. We can hold on to a beautiful memory, but we cannot make it stay forever. We can love someone, but we cannot stop them from aging or leaving. Like Rahula's jade vase, no matter how precious it had to break in the end. But the story does not stop at loss. The most important lesson Rahula learned is this: when we know how to let go, we are truly free. Letting go does not mean indifference or denial. Letting go is setting the object down so the heart can step forward lightly. When Rahula stopped identifying himself with the vase, he saw he was still there. He still had his mother, his friendships, and a life to live and to love. At the very moment the jade vase shattered, Rahula understood that what was lost was only on the surface. What remains, if we can recognize it, is inner growth. A vase may crack and break, but a heart that knows how to let go never collapses. That heart becomes a new vase, stronger and wider, able to hold both joy and sorrow without fear of breaking. Thus, Rahula's story reaches deeply. Impermanence is an inescapable truth, and letting go is the only way to find freedom. If one day you lose something you thought you could not live without, remember Rahula. Remember that you are not the vase. You are the river that keeps flowing, the sky that stays vast. And when your heart learns to let go, you will see you have not truly lost anything at all. But life rarely teaches us with just one breaking. In that same village, another upheaval was about to begin, not from a jade vase this time, but from an unruly wild horse. It caused turmoil and set the whole village arguing fiercely. From it, people learned another lesson about prejudice and wisdom. Please step into the next story, The Wild Horse in the Village. The story of the wild horse in the village. The morning sun spread golden light over the Ganges, the small ripples shimmering like silver. The ancient village of Satavana lay peacefully by the river, where thatched roofs crowded among green rice fields, where children's laughter blended with the clatter of ox carts. Everything seemed unchanged through the years, until one day an upheaval arrived with the appearance of a wild horse. There are upheavals that come like strange winds, unforeseeable. They arrive, stir up the peace, then leave imprinting marks in people's hearts. The wild horse that day was just such a wind. Ananta, the young man of the village, was sitting by the riverbank, his hands submerged in the cool water. He had a strong build and bright, gentle eyes. His father died early. He lived with his elderly mother in a small house at the edge of the village. People cherished Ananta for his sincerity, though they sometimes said he was too dreamy, often watching clouds drift by instead of tending to the fields. That morning, as Ananta was about to carry water home, a whinny echoed from afar. The sound was strange, powerful resounding through the peaceful air. Villagers looked up, leaving their work unfinished. A figure appeared at the end of the dusty road, a black horse, tall and strong mane, flying eyes blazing. It wore no rope, no saddle, charging into the village like a wild wind. A horse, a strange horse, someone shouted. Some ran, others stood frozen. The children squealed, both frightened and delighted. Ananta set down his buckets and watched. His heart beat fast. In his eyes were amazement, fear, and a strange attraction. The horse raced across the rice fields, trampling a patch of tender green. It neighed loudly, kicked down a bamboo fence, then stopped at the village well, snorting. Dust billowed. Voices rose in commotion. An old man with a white beard said, trembling, "This is a bad omen. A wild horse entering the village will surely bring disaster." A burly young man retorted, "No, this is an opportunity. If we can tame it, we'll have a powerful war horse, able to pull carts, plow fields, even make our village prosperous." An elderly woman shook her head, worry in her voice. "Don't you see? It's wild. No one can control it. Best to drive it away before we invite calamity." The crowd buzzed, some calling it good fortune, others misfortune. Ananta stepped closer, eyes fixed on the horse. He said softly to the others, "Wait, let it be. It just arrived and must be frightened. Don't rush to call it a blessing or a curse." But his words were drowned out by the arguing. The horse calmed gradually and lowered its head to drink from the well. Under the sunlight, its body gleamed, muscles rippling. A few young men eyed it greedily. "If we sell this horse to the merchants, we could get a mountain of gold," one whispered. "Or keep it, and we'll be stronger than other villages," another chimed in. Such words poured oil onto the flame of ambition. The elders, by contrast, grew more anxious. They recalled old legends. Wild horses bring ill omens and break balance. A grandmother hugged her small grandchild and whispered, "We used to be peaceful. Why let a strange beast decide our fate?" The horse tossed its mane and neighed, sending dust into the air. In that moment, Ananta realized it wasn't only the horse that was unruly. People's hearts were even more untamed. That afternoon, the villagers gathered at the communal hall to decide what to do with the horse. One man stood and proclaimed, "We must capture it and make it communal property. This is heaven-sent fortune." Another argued vehemently, "No, it tramples fields and frightens people. If we keep it, worse, disasters will come." The hall rang with dispute. The village head Gaurava sat in the center, brow furrowed. He listened in silence, then turned to Ananta. "Ananta, what do you think you often observe quietly? Speak." Ananta rose and looked around. The villagers fell silent, waiting. "Everyone," he began. "Slowly, we don't yet know whether the horse is a blessing or a curse. It's just an animal that wandered into the village. We are the ones hastily labeling it fortune or disaster. In truth, everything is impermanent. Today it tramples fields. Tomorrow it might pull carts. Or what we call a blessing today may turn into a curse tomorrow. What matters is how we face it, not the horse itself." The hall murmured. Some nodded, others frowned. A young man sneered nice words. "But if it crushes our crops, can we eat philosophy?" A few laughs broke out, but the village head struck his staff on the floor and said sharply, "Enough, we won't decide today. Let's observe further. But remember Ananta's words, don't be quick to call it a blessing or a curse." Night fell. Ananta sat on the porch watching the moonlight on the river. His close friend Saman arrived with a water jug. Ananta Saman said you were brave to speak before the village, but I know your heart is as tangled as everyone else's. Ananta sighed. True, Saman. Looking at the horse, I feel both fear and wonder. I'm not sure what it will bring, but I know that if we cling to the ideas of blessing or curse, we blind ourselves. Saman smiled kindly. You've understood part of it. Everything is impermanent. Keeping or discarding praise or blame all are labels. The horse is just a horse, but it will give the whole village a great lesson. Ananta felt lighter, yet he knew the lesson would not come easily. That night, the wild horse still wandered through the village, its dark silhouette stretching under the moon. Its neighing echoed like a challenge to Satavana. Some lay awake with worry. Others dreamed of riches. As for Ananta, lying beside his elderly mother, he stared at the thatched roof. He knew that tomorrow, and for many days to come, the horse would keep stirring people's hearts. And from that, he himself would face a journey he had never imagined. The next day, just as the sun rose, shouts erupted from the eastern fields. The wild horse had appeared again. It ran like the wind crushing a strip of young rice. The scent of bruised grass spread everywhere. My God, my field. A man cried, chasing helplessly. A child fell face first into the mud as the horse brushed past. The mother pulled the child in, panicked. Dust rose thick. The horse's neighs thundered like war drums. Villagers poured out. Some carried sticks, others stones. A few shouted, "Kill it, it's a disaster." But other young men rushed in to stop them. Hands raised. No, don't harm it. This horse is powerful. If we tame it, the whole village will prosper. The argument erupted right there in the rice field. At noon in the communal hall, the air was taut as a drawn string. An old farmer, face flushed, slammed the table. We can't stand this anymore. It wrecks the fields. The children are scared. If we don't get rid of it, our harvest will be ruined. A young man, eyes bright with ambition, stood up. You're only thinking about a few plots of rice. I see a chest of gold. This horse has extraordinary strength. If we sell it to merchants, we'll have wealth like never before. If we keep it, we'll have a war horse and could become the strongest village in the region. The noise swelled. A young woman said shakily, "But what if it attacks someone yesterday?" My child was almost hurt. The crowd split clearly into two sides, those who wanted to kill the horse and those who wanted to keep it. Village head Gaurava looked around, then turned to Ananta. Son, the other day you said we shouldn't rush to call it a blessing or a curse. What about now? It has trampled our fields. Do you still think that way? Ananta stood, his voice calm but clear. Village head, I still think. The horse is just a horse. It brings neither blessing nor curse. Our minds create those. Today we suffer over the fields, but if we catch it, we'll call that luck. So in the end, what changes the horse or our hearts? The hall was silent for a few seconds. Then the whispering resumed. Someone scolded, "What nonsense! If we leave it alone, who will be responsible when the harvest is gone?" Another interjected, "But if we kill it, we lose our chance to change our fate. We've been poor too long." The village head struck his staff, voice heavy. "Enough, we won't decide yet, but one day we must choose. For now, guard the fields and don't let it cause more damage." That night, Ananta and Saman sat by the hearth. The flickering fire lit their faces. Saman asked Ananta, "How do you feel?" Ananta sighed, "I'm exhausted. One horse is tearing the village apart. Some are angry, others are greedy. I feel We're wilder than the horse. Saman nodded and said slowly, exactly. The wild horse lives by its nature. Humans attach labels: blessing, curse, wealth, calamity. In truth, everything is impermanent. Today we call it a curse. Tomorrow we may see it as a blessing. But if we keep chasing, we'll never be at peace. Ananta's eyes were heavy. But if we ignore it, the fields will be ruined. What should we do? Saman placed a stick on the fire, letting the flames flare. Not ignore and not clutch tightly. Observe, act just enough, and don't let the mind cling. The wild horse is a lesson, not an enemy, not a treasure. A few days later was market day. Merchants came from afar with silk spices and gold. When they saw the wild horse, their eyes lit up. An old merchant whispered to the village head, "If you sell it to me, I'll pay 50 bags of gold. You'll never have to worry about your villagers again." The village head hesitated. News spread. The village buzzed. The greedy faction grew louder. "See, it really is good fortune. If we keep it, we'll gain even more." But the fearful faction shouted back, "One kick and a life could be lost. What gold could compensate that?" The tension was like a mountain about to erupt. That afternoon, a group of daring young men tried to capture the horse. They brought ropes and surrounded it at the water's edge. "Hold tight, tie it," they shouted. The horse screamed and thrashed. It kicked, knocking one young man down, blood streaming from his shoulder. The villagers panicked. Children screamed. "See, it's dangerous. Kill it now," a woman cried. "No, with patience we can tame it," the other side retorted. The argument roared. Ananta rushed in, helped the injured man, then shouted, "Stop. Do you want a horse or blood enough?" But no one listened. Greed and fear had driven them mad. That night, Ananta sat by the well, watching the moon reflected in the water. A storm raged in his heart. He felt fear, anger, and helplessness all at once. One horse, and the whole village is coming apart. What should I do? Why can't people see? Why do they cling to blessing, curse, gain, loss? He closed his eyes and recalled Saman's words. The wild horse is only a lesson. But how could he keep his mind steady when there were trampled fields, injured people, and a divided village before him? The moon shone silently, but inside Ananta, the storm had not passed. The next day, the horse appeared again. It stood in the middle of the field mane, flying eyes defiant. From a distance, the villagers watched, torn by conflict. Someone whispered, "Blessing or curse, we'll find out soon enough." Ananta stood still, looking at the horse and sighed. "No, our hearts decide. The horse is just a horse." Deep down, he sensed something larger approaching. The horse was only the beginning of a lesson that the village and he himself would have to go through. Day after day, the wild horse kept appearing. It neither left the village nor allowed anyone to catch it. It raced across the rice, drank at the well, then vanished into the forest, leaving chaos in its wake. Now the villagers lived in unease. By day they whispered and debated. By night they gathered in the hall to argue. Some dreamed of gold and power. Others lost sleep, fearing the harvest would fail. One evening the hall was packed. Oil lamps flickered, shadows wavered. Village head Gaurava sat on the wooden chair looking weary. A farmer sprang up and shouted, "We can't take it anymore. This horse has wrecked my fields. If we don't kill it, our children will starve." Immediately, a young man with blazing eyes countered, "You only see small losses. If we tame it, we'll have the strength to change our fate. Killing it is foolish." The clamor thundered like a storm. People shouted, slammed tables. Sticks struck the floor with sharp cracks. The village head pounded his staff and barked, "Silence, I know everyone has a point. But if we keep arguing, we'll lose everything: our fields, the horse, and our peace." For a moment they fell quiet, but their eyes still burned. In the end, the greedy faction prevailed. They proposed a plan. At dawn, they would join forces to capture the horse using ropes, nets, and fresh grass as bait. If they succeeded, they would tame it, then decide whether to keep or sell it. A trembling old woman protested, "You're mad. It's wild, it will hurt people." But the shouts drowned everything out. The eager young men, the poor who hungered for a chance to change their lives, they no longer heard the warnings. Ananta stood up, his voice urgent. "Everyone think carefully. A horse is not worth risking our lives. It is not a treasure nor a monster. It is just a horse." But no one listened. Someone waved him off. "You only know how to talk philosophy. We want action." Ananta sat down, his heart heavy as stone. Saman sat beside him and whispered, "You can't stop them. They'll have to learn through pain." The next morning, the entire village gathered in the big field. The wild horse was grazing there, its glossy black body standing out in the sun. It lifted its head, eyes wary at the sight of the crowd. Villagers brought ropes, nets, and sticks. A young man shouted, "Surround it. Don't let it escape." Shouts erupted. Some threw ropes, others blocked its path. The horse neighed and bolted. It kicked down a fence and flung two people aside. Blood splattered. Screams pierced the air. "Hold tight, tie it up," someone yelled. But the more it struggled, the fiercer it became. It charged into the crowd, knocking many to the ground. Dust filled the air, crying, shouting, and the horse's screams mixed like a battle. In the chaos, a little boy, the son of a farmer, ran into the field, calling for his father in panic. The frightened horse charged straight toward him. "No, my son," the father yelled, rushing in. But it was too late. The horse reared and flung both father and child aside. The father collapsed, blood soaking the earth. The boy screamed, clutching his father, trembling. For a moment, the entire field fell silent. Then the shouting erupted again. "See, it kills people, it's a monster. Kill it now." The crowd exploded. They rushed in with sticks, eyes blazing with hatred. Ananta ran to the injured father and lifted him. Blood soaked Ananta's shirt. The man gasped, grabbed Ananta's hand, and whispered, "Do not hate. It is only a horse." Then he went limp. Ananta choked up, tears welling. He looked at the horse, frantic within the ring of people. It panted, eyes, bloodshot body shaking. He realized it was terrified and cornered, no different from the villagers themselves. He shouted, "Stop, don't kill it. It's not at fault. It is our greed and fear that caused this death." But the crowd wouldn't listen. They were mad with the desire for revenge. The village head rushed in, pounding his staff. "Stop. No one may kill the horse without my decision." But his voice was drowned in the frenzy. A group dragged Ananta aside, cursing, "You still defend it. It's killed a man." Ananta broke free and shouted, "No, it's just an animal. The man died because we wouldn't let go, because we wanted to possess." No one listened. The crowd roared, "Kill, kill, kill." In the chaos, the horse reared again and broke through the circle. It raced straight into the forest and vanished among the trees. Silence fell over the field. The dead man lay there, blood darkening the soil. The villagers looked at one another with eyes full of hatred and helplessness. Someone shouted, "It escaped." The disaster will only grow. Another ground his teeth. This is all Ananta's fault. If he hadn't defended it, we would have killed it earlier. Eyes turned on Ananta. He stood frozen, cradling the unfortunate man's body. Tears streaming. A storm raged in his heart. Had he been wrong? Should he have let them kill the horse sooner? That night, Ananta sat alone by the river. The water lapping at the shore sounded like an endless whisper. He watched the moon drift across the surface, his heart aching. I said, "A horse is just a horse. But now a man is dead. What value do my words have? Was I wrong?" Saman came and sat beside him. He was silent for a while. Then Ananta choked out, "Saman, I can't bear it. This death haunts me. People blame me, and maybe they're right." Saman looked straight into his eyes and said gravely, "No, Ananta. You didn't kill him. It was the human heart greed-fear conflict that killed him. The horse is only a mirror. You see, when people's minds go wild, tragedy is inevitable." Ananta trembled. "But I feel guilty. I want to understand, but the more I think, the more tangled it gets. Saman, will we never escape suffering?" Saman placed a hand on his shoulder. "There's someone who can help you. Go to the elder monk Mahinda in the forest. He once taught me, a wild mind is more dangerous than a wild horse. You will understand." Ananta sat quietly listening to the river's gentle slap on the shore. In the darkness, a distant neigh echoed like a haunting reminder. He knew he could not avoid this any longer. The tragedy had happened, and the only path left was to seek a deeper truth. He looked at Saman and nodded. "Tomorrow I'll go. If the wild horse reflects the human heart, then I must learn to look straight into my own." The moon was bright, but in Ananta's heart, shadows remained. He knew the journey ahead would decide everything. The next morning, Ananta left home before sunrise. He carried a little packed rice his mother had prepared, wrapped himself in a coarse cloak, and walked toward the deep forest where the ancient temple stood. Saman's advice still echoed in his mind. A wild mind is more dangerous than a wild horse. Along the way, Ananta passed the field from the day before, where human blood still stained the earth red. He stopped and bowed his head. A blade twisted in his heart. He whispered, "Forgive me. I will seek answers, so your death won't be in vain." After half a day on foot, Ananta reached a dense forest. Birds called, leaves rustled, the air smelled of resin. In the heart of the forest, a small temple appeared. Moss on the tiles, cracks in the brick walls. A deep, warm bell tone echoed through the air. On the veranda, an old monk sat in meditation, eyes, half-closed, breath even. This was Mahinda, the sage Saman had mentioned. Ananta knelt, touching his forehead to the ground, and choked out, "Venerable sir, I come seeking guidance. My village is in ruins because of a wild horse. A man is dead. Hearts are divided. I feel guilty and confused. Please show me the way." Mahinda opened his eyes. His gaze was kind yet deep as the sea. He spoke slowly. "My son, you say the wild horse caused it all. But answer me, it only ate grass and ran. Who put the name disaster on it? Humans, did they not?" Ananta was taken aback. "Yes, that's true. But it trampled the fields and caused a death." Mahinda nodded slightly. "Yes. But ask yourself honestly, the rice fields lost only a portion. The death most painful of all happened because people rushed in with greed and fear. If the horse had not been cornered, would it have gone mad like that?" Ananta was silent. In his heart, the answer rang clear, no. Mahinda picked up a dry bamboo twig and drew a circle on the ground. Look, the human mind is like a wild horse. Left free, it only grazes and drinks. But when stretched tight by greed, anger, and fear, it becomes a monster. A wild mind is more dangerous than a wild horse because it drives people to harm themselves and others. Ananta bowed his head, voice trembling. I've seen it. The whole village went mad. So did I. I wanted to stop it, but my heart was full of anger and helplessness. I too was a slave to the wild mind. Mahinda looked deeply into his eyes and smiled. Then you've seen the first step. The ignorant blame the horse. The awakened recognize the horse within. Mahinda picked up a fallen leaf and raised it. Do you see this leaf? It was once green, once gave shade. Now it is yellow and has fallen. That is impermanence, the truth of life. The horse came and it will go. Those who live will die. Joy and sorrow alike flow like a river. If you insist on holding on, you will suffer. Ananta looked at the leaf, his heart surging. He remembered the dead man, the blood, the cries. Tears rose. But Venerable Sir, how can I not feel pain when I see death? Mahinda said gently, pain is natural. But clinging to pain, turning it into resentment, that is the chain. When you see that death too is impermanent, you will cherish life without being drowned by grief. Mahinda took a bowl of water and handed it to Ananta. Hold it tight. Ananta gripped it. Water sloshed over and spilled onto the ground. Now loosen your grip and hold it just enough. Ananta did so. The water stilled in the bowl and did not spill. Mahinda smiled. Do you see, when you hold too tightly, you lose the water? When you hold lightly just enough, it remains. Life is the same. Love, hate, holding, letting go, all must be just enough. Clutch and you suffer. Let go wisely, and you are at peace. Ananta trembled. His eyes brightened. I understand. Death, the horse, the division, all are impermanent. If I keep trying to hold on, I'll hurt. Only by letting go will I be free. Mahinda led Ananta into the temple courtyard. Sit down. Close your eyes. Breathe. Ananta did as told. At first, his mind was filled with images. The horse's scream, the dead man, the shouts. But Mahinda's warm voice said, watch the breath as you would watch a river. Let each thought that comes drift away. After a while, the noise in his mind softened. Ananta felt his breath slow, heard the wind, the birds, and the temple bell. A tear fell, not bitter this time, but light. He whispered, I feel less heavy. Mahinda smiled. That is letting go. You have just set down part of your burden. The next day, Ananta woke in the temple. Birds called the dawn. Sunlight slipped through the door cracks. He felt lighter than he had in days. He went to Mahinda and bowed, Venerable Sir. I don't know how to thank you. I still hurt, but now I have a path. Mahinda looked at him kindly. Remember, my son, the wild horse is just an image. It came to remind you of the wild mind within. If you know how to let go, you will no longer fear the horse or yourself. Ananta prepared to leave the temple, heart swelling with gratitude. He bowed deeply, his vow, etched in his heart, to return to the village and share this lesson with everyone. Stepping out of the forest, he saw warm sunlight spread like gold. Birds sang as if welcoming him. For the first time in many days, Ananta smiled. He whispered, the horse will no longer be a nightmare. It is only a teacher of impermanence and letting go. With a calmer heart, he turned back toward the village. After days at the temple, Ananta returned. The familiar road was the same, but he felt different. His steps were lighter, his heart less burdened. As he passed the field where the tragedy occurred, Villagers were replanting the rice. They looked at him with mixed eyes, blame, doubt, and a hint of expectation. Someone whispered, "That's Ananta, the one who defended the horse." Another shook his head. "We lost someone because of it. Now he's back. What will he say?" Ananta bowed to everyone without arguing. He knew they were hurting, and only listening, not justifying, could heal. In the afternoon village, head Gaurava summoned everyone to the hall. The villagers gathered, faces tense. Gaurava looked at Ananta-san. "You went to see Monk Mahinda, didn't you? Tell the village, we've lost too much because of the wild horse. If there is still a ray of light, share it." Ananta stood. He looked around and saw anger in some eyes, weariness in others, and lingering fear in the children's. He took a deep breath and spoke slowly with feeling. "Everyone, the wild horse is neither a blessing nor a curse. It is just a horse. But it is our hearts, when we stick labels on it, that turn it into a monster or a treasure. Greed drives us to capture it. Fear makes us want to kill it. Both drag us into tragedy." A man leapt up in anger. "Then what about the death? If it's just a horse, how did a life get lost?" Ananta looked at the man, his eyes heavy. "That death is a painful truth. But if we look closely, we'll see he did not die because of the horse, but because of people's disputes. The horse panicked because it was cornered. The man died because we didn't know how to let go. If we don't learn from this tragedy, then that death is meaningless." The hall fell silent. Wind slipped through the door cracks. A sigh was heard. Ananta continued, "The horse came, and it will go. Rice grows, and then withers. People are born, and then pass away. That is impermanence, a truth no one can escape. If we insist on holding on, we will suffer. But if we know how to cherish while it's here, and let go when it's gone, we will be free." He picked up a small stone and dropped it to the ground. When a stone falls, we cannot pull it back up. But we can learn that everything follows its law. We don't need to hate the stone or blame it. We need to understand it. A young woman burst into tears and hugged her child. "I was terrified my child would be trampled by the horse. Now hearing Ananta, I see. It was my fear that kept me awake at night. The horse never even touched him." The next day at sunrise, the wild horse appeared again. It stood on the hill main, flying eyes, looking down at the village. The villagers stirred, but this time, no one held sticks, no one shouted. They only watched feelings rising in their hearts. Ananta stepped into the center of the village and stood still, hands joined toward it. Not to tame it, not to drive it away, just acknowledgement. The horse let out a long neigh, then turned and galloped into the deep forest. Dust rose, then settled. It did not return after that. The villagers stood still. A strange emptiness spread, but also relief. They realized the horse came and went, like so many other things in life. That evening, people gathered around the fire. An old man spoke. "The other day I said the horse was a bad omen. The next day I thought it was good fortune. In the end, it was only a horse. The fault was ours, not its." A young man whispered, "I once dreamed of gold and silver, but the price was a man's blood. Thinking back now, I see how blind I was." Confessions like these rose throughout the village. Each person gradually realized the division and suffering did not come from the horse, but from their own hearts. Ananta sat quietly listening. He knew the lesson had begun to take root. The next day, Ananta helped a family rebuild their fence. During a break, A little boy asked him, "Will the horse come back?" Ananta patted the boy's head and smiled. "Maybe. But if it does, let's not label it. Don't rush to call it a blessing or a curse. See it exactly as it is and let go of fear and greed. Then whether it stays or goes, we'll still be at peace." The boy nodded, eyes bright. On a windy afternoon, a fiery sunset spread over the Ganges. The river glittered like a giant mirror, reflecting the solemn faces of Satavana's villagers. They gathered by the riverbank, where incense smoke rose from a small, newly built shrine. The simple shrine of bamboo and palm leaves held a flickering oil lamp inside. It was where they honored the unfortunate farmer who had fallen in the chaos with the wild horse. Ananta stepped before the crowd. Weariness still lingered on his face, but his eyes were clearer, deeper. His voice was low and steady, echoing in the evening sky. "Everyone the wild horse has left, but it did not leave empty-handed. It left us a lesson that if we don't understand it, will keep us suffering. It taught that impermanence is a truth no one can escape. The horse comes and goes. People live and pass away. The rice fields that were lush green yesterday may be yellowed today or trampled. Like this river, the water keeps flowing, never stopping. The more we try to cling, the faster it seems to slip away. Letting go is the only path to freedom. When we are greedy and want to keep the horse for gold, our hearts become chaotic. When we are afraid and want to kill it for peace, our hearts are chaotic too. Both greed and fear drag us into tragedy. Only when we can set things down, only when we let the horse be a horse, can we find peace." His words mingled with the sound of waves against the shore, and everyone grew quiet. No one spoke. Only the distant temple bell could be heard, its long tone linking Ananta's words with the beating of their hearts. A trembling old woman spoke, her voice hoarse but sincere. "Yes, we are the ones who made ourselves suffer. The horse merely came and went, but people fixed labels of blessing and curse, then fought, then hated. Thank you, Ananta, and thank you, horse, for waking us up. Without it, we might have remained blind within our own greed, anger, and fear." Her words were like a wind fanning shared understanding. Many bowed their heads to hide their tears. They understood that what was lost was not just a life or a few plots of rice, but the peace in their hearts. Yet from that loss, they learned a new way to live, to cherish what remains, and to let go when it's gone. As the light faded, they lit more incense and pressed their hands together toward the river. In that moment, they knew they had just passed through a season of storms to grow growing in understanding, in awakening, and in the faith that letting go is the key that opens the door to freedom. That night, the wind rose. It hissed through the bamboo at the village edge. An old bamboo stalk battered by the strong wind cracked and fell. The villagers heard it and started. Ananta looked up and whispered, "The bamboo breaking in the wind," will remind us of another lesson. And from the story of the wild horse, the people of Satavana stepped onto a new path, the path told in the next Zen story, The Bamboo That Broke in the Wind. The story of the bamboo that broke in the wind. The early summer wind arrived ahead of time. That afternoon, clouds from the west trudged across the sky like a herd of black buffalo. The bamboo grove at the gate of Satavana village creaked, the trunks rubbing together with a hoarse sound, like people whispering when a storm is about to break. By the Ganges, the children still played carefreely, their laughter shattering across the water, which glowed with the red of sunset. Soma stood under the bamboo grove, scythe in hand, a bundle of freshly cut young rattan slung over his shoulder. He was the best basket weaver in the village. His skillful hands wove packs as sturdy as a promise. But in Soma's eyes, there was something sturdier still. People praised him as steady as bamboo, and Soma believed that being steady meant never bowing. Tonight the wind will be strong. Bhavita arrived, arms full of cotton thread hair, tied up high, a clay-colored scarf around her neck. Go home and tie down the thatch roof. Your mother's afraid the rain will blow in. Soma looked up at the sky. The tighter you tie, the harder the wind pulls, and the more the roof tears. I fastened the ropes the way my father taught me, cross-lashing, angled, anchoring. The wind can't tear it off. Don't be stiff with the wind like that. Bhavita smiled, her voice light as mist. Look at the bamboo always bending with the wind. That's why it doesn't break. Soma looked down the old grove. Amid the slim, supple stalks stood an ancient cane called Rudra. The old bamboo thicker, perfectly straight, with fewer hollow joints. The elders called it the village's sky pillar. Soma tapped it with his scythe tip and heard a cool, ringing tone. Rudra's been here since my great-grandfather's time. No wind has ever subdued it. Bhavita tilted her head. Old means fibrous. Fibrous means brittle, too rigid, breaks easily. Soma frowned, half teasing, half serious. You always sound like the wandering ascetics. Because I weave cloth, I know softness makes a fabric tough. And you weave baskets, you know young rattan must be soaked to become pliable. She looked into his eyes slowly. Soma, don't be rigid with life. On the dirt road, Elder Thakur came tapping along with his cane, his white beard fluttering like the tail of an old kite. Catching a bit of their words, he cleared his throat. Rigidity defeats wind. Since the Blessed One traveled to teach, people have raised stupas and planted bamboo to hold villages firm. You youngsters don't bring milky soft talk in here. Soma bowed. Greetings, sir. Bhavita politely. Greetings, Elder Thakur. He rapped his cane against old Rudra with a thud. Listen. Solid sound, firm as stone. Tonight the wind may flip roofs, but Rudra won't budge. The wind suddenly shifted. From the riverbank, cool moisture crawled over the young rice, slipped through low fences, and seeped into people's chests with a faint unease. Ananda, a roving storyteller, was just returning from the market, across the ferry cloak, dark on his shoulders, hand guiding a wooden cart of salt. He stopped to look at the bamboo grove and spoke idly, as if to the wind. Once I passed through a village with an old bamboo standing like a flagpole. The first seasonal wind came. The old bamboo cried out and fell, crushing a kitchen roof. The whole village thought it a bad omen. Turned out it was just old bamboo, solid inside, not hollow, so it broke. Thakur waved him off. Other people's stories don't concern our village. Ananda smiled. Yes, other people's stories, but the wind shares one sky. That night rain came while the moon still hung halfway up. Lightning thin as leaf veins slashed the sky. Thatch pounded in bursts. Ropes squealed across the eaves. Madhuri Soma's mother coaxed the fire and warmed porridge in a clay pot, calling out, "Bolt the back door. Don't let water blow into the granary." I already did. Mother Soma braced the beam, glancing out the window at the dark grove, swaying hard. In the rain, Rudra still stood straight, bold as a nail. With each lash of wind, bamboo leaves clapped together like beating hands, relentless. Bhavita sheltered at a neighbor's house, carrying her loom up to the loft. The click-clack of weaving soothed the nerves. She thought of Soma of the old bamboo, then gently shook her head. May this night pass safely. Near midnight, the wind changed its voice from droning to a howl. A dry crack rang out like a bow snapping. Soma jolted and rushed onto the porch. In the rain, a lightning stroke lit a white streak, and he saw old Rudra snapped at its waist. The crown crashed onto the young bamboo fence, dragging a tangle of stalks down like snarled hair. Mother Soma shouted. Madhuri ran out, hand shielding her head. Heavens, someone cried from next door. Ananda stood under the eaves holding his cart from rolling and sighed at the sight. When you're too rigid, the wind will teach you a lesson. Thakur hurried over in a palm leaf raincoat, the storm lashing his white beard. He threw his arms around the broken trunk as if holding a fallen friend. Rainwater blended with tears. Rudra, you saved the pavilion roof through so many storm seasons. Villagers streamed out, some with baskets on their heads, some with lamps' feet squelching in mud. Bhavita arrived, skirt hitched, hand trembling as she touched the split grain. She looked at Soma, eyes wet but clear. It's lucky no one was hurt. Lucky, Thakur glared. The village sky pillar breaks in two, and you call that lucky? Softly, Bhavita said. The tree broke, but people remain. He flung his hand. Girl, people live under a tree's shade, under its symbol. The tree breaks, the heart breaks. Soma stood between two winds, the elder's grieving lament and Bhavita's gentle tone. Inside him, something cracked, not the bamboo, but a belief long as rigid as dry rattan. He bit his lip. Tomorrow we'll raise it. We'll brace against the wind until the wind yields. Ananda smiled slightly. When does wind ever yield? It only changes course. Soma shot back firm. Then we'll stretch ropes and set braces to force it down the path we choose. Morning cleared. The earth steamed like thin smoke. The old bamboo lay there, its trunk fissured like lightning scars. Villagers gathered in the pavilion for an urgent meeting. Thakur tapped his cane. We'll raise Rudra, use wooden props and rattan ropes, tie crosswise and diagonal. We'll keep the village's upright form. A farmer timidly said, Sir, the old bamboo is solid inside. If we lift it, it'll snap somewhere else. Silence, Thakur slammed. Splint a bone enough, and it knits. Bhavita asked. Leave. Let me say a word. I weave. I know threads need give. Pull too tight, snap. Bamboo is the same. Perhaps we should cut the break, leave a path for the wind. Young bamboo will rise. A young mother chimed in. Last night my fence nearly collapsed. If we set up a broken trunk, the next storm will crush us again. Murmurs spread. Cutting is like betraying tradition. Keeping it is risky. Keep it, we have a symbol. Cut it, we have safety. Soma stood, gripped tight enough to raise veins. I volunteer to lead the raising. I know my father's lashing methods. I'll make the wind submit. Ananda tightened a rope at a stake and said quietly to Soma, You're proud, because you'll do what no one dares. Careful pride is the easiest cord to snap in a storm. Soma didn't answer, but his heart twinged like a newly tightened rattan strand. The sun dipped. The final rope was locked. Rudra stood again, tilted but standing. The villagers cheered. Thakur lifted his cane, eyes shining. Soma wiped his sweat and looked up at the sky pillar, throat tight. Stand for me. Don't bow to the wind. Monk Sudama turned to leave, and before disappearing onto the bamboo path, left a sentence neither loud nor soft. Tonight the wind will return. Return it did. From afar the forest sounded like a sea of robes rustling. Soma lay awake, eyes tracking the thatch to the squeal of rattan ropes. Madhuri placed a hand on his brow. Too much rigidity tires you, son. I just want the village not to bow its head. Bowing to the wind isn't bowing to life, she whispered. I'm old. I've learned to bend without losing. Outside the grove hummed a long, low note, like a flute pulled by wind. The newly raised broken bamboo shook violently. Somewhere, a rattan rope hissed like a snake. Soma sprang up, gripping a staff, eyes bruised but blazing. If it snaps, I'll retie it. If it breaks, I'll prop it again. I will not lose. Under her leaf roof, Pavita held the loom cheek pressed to the wood. If morning comes safely, I'll say something different to Soma. The sky answered with a ripping flash. Wind drove the rain slant like silver curtains. The rattan tightened to its limit, and twanged Pang Soma rushed to the porch cold mud, to his ankles, heart pounding like a war drum. In front of the pavilion, Rudra raised, halfway trembled with each gust. The whole village peered from doorways holding breath. And in the instant between two claps of thunder, Soma clearly heard from somewhere not wind, not human. A quiet, deep sentence, sometimes letting go is keeping. He blinked. The wind surged in like a cavalry. The sentence sank away. Only bamboo cries, rope hisses, and a young heart's drumbeat to defeat the storm remained. And the night was still long. The next morning the sky was clear, but dampness lingered in the air like a warning that the storms hadn't truly passed. Satavana's pavilion was packed. Villagers gathered, eyes tired, yet still blazing with debate. Elder Thakur sat on a bamboo chair, his cane tapping the floor in rhythm. Last night, thanks to Soma's courage, and the village youths we raised, Rudra, the sky pillar bamboo. We must keep it at all costs. It is the symbol of our village's strength and honor. Some nodded in approval, but in a corner a few young farmers whispered, keep it how the rattan is taught, hissing like it'll snap. If another storm comes, who guarantees our fences and homes won't collapse? A woman holding a child stood, voice trembling. Respected elders, I don't dare defy you, but I think a broken tree should be left as is, so young bamboo can grow. If we cling to it, we add danger. Last night I held my child in fear. I only want safety. Noise rose one side, keep the other. Kutbavita stood, eyes bright and voice resolute. Honored ones, I'll say only what I see. I weave. I know a thread pulled too tight will snap. Bamboo is the same. If we bind it stiff, a slightly stronger wind will shatter it, far more dangerous. Why don't we accept cutting the broken part, opening a path for the wind, so new bamboo can rise? Soma sprang up sharper than usual. Bhavita, you don't understand. If we cut it, what will the village lean on? The wind can take a roof, but not our honor. We cannot bow our heads. Bhavita met his eyes, holding back anger. Bowing to the wind isn't bowing to life, Soma. You saw it last night. The ropes shrieked, Rudra shook. If the storm grows, not only the tree will break, people will be hurt. The hall buzzed. A farmer whispered, both young folks speak true, but which side do we choose? Just then the wooden gong sounded. Monk Sudama appeared, thin frame steps, slow yet steady. He set his kakyara on the floor and spoke in a warm, deep voice. I've heard you're arguing from afar. Each of you wants to protect the village, but ask yourselves, are you protecting the village or your own ego? The air settled. Sudama raised a small bamboo flute. This flute sings because it is hollow. If it were solid like stone, it would stay mute. Bamboo lives by being hollow, by knowing how to bend. Do you wish to force an old solid cord bamboo to stand straight forever? Then you ask it to be what is contrary to its nature. Thakur frowned. But if we let it break, people's hearts will weaken and lose faith. Sudama replied gently, hearts don't weaken because bamboo breaks. They weaken because we cling to an image of bamboo that must never break. Bamboo breaks and young shoots grow. A person falls and another stands. Impermanence is the law of life. Whoever resists it suffers. A young man hesitantly asked, then, are you telling us to chop it down completely? Sudama smiled. Not discard, let go. Cut the dead part to nourish the living. That is how the village keeps breathing with the wind. Some nodded, but Soma clenched his fists, eyes blazing. Venerable sir, I respect you. But to me, accepting the break is surrender. I want to prove bamboo can stand, and I will make it stand. Sudama looked at him with sorrow. My son, you are not proving it for the bamboo. You are proving it for your ego, and that ego is more fragile than bamboo. Night fell, and the wind surged again. No one in the village slept well. In the small house, Madhuri sat mending clothes and said to her son Soma, I agree with monk Sudama. Perhaps letting go is safer. Your father used to say living means knowing how to be soft. Soma shook his head, voice hard. Father died of illness, not wind. I won't let people remember Soma as the one who made the village bow its head. Madhuri sighed, her clouded eyes brimming. My child, bow to the wind so you don't break. That isn't cowardice, it's wisdom. But Soma didn't listen. In his heart, the fire of pride burned brighter than fear. Across the lane, Bhavita tossed beside her loom. Each pass of the shuttle, she heard the wind whistle through door cracks. A vague dread rose in her. Not only would the bamboo break, Soma himself might break if he refused to learn to let go. The next day, the villagers split clearly into two groups. The keep side, led by Thakur, and Soma, insisted on raising Rudra and binding it tight, convinced that rigidity defeats wind. The cut side, led by Bhavita and several young families, believed they should cut the broken part, open a path for the wind, and protect lives. On the pavilion courtyard, the two sides faced off. The shouting boomed like thunder. Cutting it is humiliating, one side shouted. Keeping it will get people killed, the other side replied. A young man from the Keep faction growled, we are not cowards. Better to break than to bow. A mother from the Cut faction protested, if you break, that's you. But what about my child? He's still little. He needs to live. The air was taut like a bowstring. Village head Gaurava had to postpone things and said, enough for now. Each side prepare on your own. When the storm comes, we'll see who is right and who is wrong. That afternoon, Bhavita met Soma by the river. The Ganges churned as if mirroring their moods. You're too stubborn, Soma, Bhavita said, voice trembling. You can't protect the village if all you want is to protect your ego. Last night I watched the wind pass through my loom. Threads pulled too tight snap. Bamboo is the same. People are the same. Soma looked at her, anger and pain in his eyes. You don't understand. The whole village needs a point of support. If we don't keep Rudra, everyone will be unsettled. I'd rather sacrifice myself than be called weak. Bhavita put a hand on his shoulder. The true support isn't the bamboo. The support is a heart that knows how to let go. Otherwise, the tree may stand, but people's hearts still break. Soma brushed her hand away and turned his face aside, but in his heart, her words pricked like a needle, keeping him from sleeping soundly. That night, Soma passed by Sudama's bamboo hermitage. The old monk sat in the moonlight, eyes half closed. "You've come." Sudama opened his eyes as if he already knew. Soma knelt. "Venerable sir, I want to ask, how is letting go any different from giving up?" Sudama smiled. "Try holding your breath." Soma did so, and within seconds, his face flushed red. "See, clinging is death. Only when you exhale do you live. Letting go isn't abandoning, it's breathing. Bamboo is like that. People are like that." Soma sat in silence, sweat beading on his brow. For the first time, he understood that letting go wasn't weakness, it was how to stay alive. But inside, his ego still resisted. If he let go, where would the village's honor be? In the days that followed, the sky darkened. Clouds rolled into thick layers. The wind shrieked nonstop. The whole village lived on edge. The Keep faction added more rattan ropes and planted more wooden stakes. The Cut faction prepared knives and machetes, ready to fell the bamboo if the storm hit. Soma led the young men drenched in sweat, hands blistered. He shouted, "Tighten it more. No matter how strong the wind, it won't bring Rudra down." From afar, Bhavita watched, her heart twisting. She thought to herself, "You're tying yourself to death, not tying the bamboo to the earth." That afternoon, thunder rolled from the horizon. Black clouds like a herd of giant beasts surged in. Villagers dropped their work and stared up at the sky. Thakur raised his cane and shouted, "Prepare, the wind returns tonight. We'll show the wind Satavana will not submit." Soma cinched the last rattan knot, his eyes blazing in the season's first flashes of lightning. But somewhere inside, Sudama's words still echoed. Clinging is death. Letting go is breathing. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but in people's hearts it had already broken, and everything was only beginning. The wind came earlier than anyone predicted. Before the evening had fully faded, a distant rumble like war drums rolled in. Black clouds massed into heavy blocks, swallowing the last gold of day. A cold, briny river smell rose from the Ganges, crept along fences, slipped into lungs like a wet, icy hand. The people of Satavana barred doors, tied roofs, and secured the cattle pens, but their eyes stayed fixed on the village gate, where Rudra, the broken old bamboo now raised, again stood precariously in the oncoming gale. Thakur strode to the pavilion yard, voice old yet ringing. "Keep faction folk, listen up. Split into teams, rope watchers, stake reinforcements, water and torch support. Tonight, the village's honor stands there." Soma tightened the final knot and clasped the hands of the young men. "If a rope loosens, tighten it. If a stake leans, drive it in. If the wind howls, stand firm. We will not let Rudra buckle again." Across the way, Bhavita stood with the Cut group machete in hand. She inhaled deeply and murmured to them, "If ropes begin snapping in succession, if the trunk shudders too much, if you see stakes popping out, follow the plan cut. Don't wait until people bleed." A young mother trembled, but Elder Thakur, Bhavita met her gaze. When the wind is big enough, the only command is to keep people alive. Monk Sudama arrived quietly and stood behind an old starfruit tree, thumb rolling his beads. He watched the sky turn black, his eyes like a winter stream, so still that one could hear one's own hurried breath. The first gust swept through the village like a herd of shadow horses. The bamboo grove bent as one leaves, slashing each other with a harsh swish. Rudra shuddered, The split at its waist rasped with a tooth-aching scrape. The rattan ropes drew tight like tendons on a neck straining to resist. Stakes vibrated. Earth around their feet cracked in star patterns. Hold Soma's shout cut through the wind. The young men lunged in, each hugging a guy line, feet dug into mud faces whipped by rain like lashes. A white bolt tore the sky, revealing Rudra, leaning another half-hand's width. Titan Soma yelled. Two men grabbed the rope and stamped the stake deeper. The smell of wet earth surged up. Back up, Bhavita shouted to her group. Watch the stake bases, stake number 2 is cracking, someone cried. Thakur brandished his cane, taunting the wind, drive more. Drive until the earth itself protests. The wind swung, suddenly lashing across the village. An old rattan rope one Soma had braided himself whistled like a cornered snake, then snapped. It whipped a young man's forearm, raising blood and a cry. Bandage it, Soma roared. Wrap it and swap in the spare rope. The support team tore cloth for a bandage. The injured man gritted his teeth, eyes never leaving the bamboo. The next gust came like a moving black wall. Rain dumped in dense sheets, slanting like spilled beans. Rudra shook again. The sound of an old back straining against the weight of the past creaked from the split trunk. Ropes shrieked in chorus. Yesterday's newly planted stakes popped up half an inch. This isn't good, Bhavita called. Soma, look at the stake bases. Soma glanced quickly. In a blink, he saw 4 things: soupy, earth-rising stakes, aging ropes, and a waist split widening. But pride tugged his gaze back to support and honor. Add cross ropes, set more stakes, he barked. This isn't the time to retreat. Sudama shook his head and exhaled his words, threading the bamboo-clinging chokes, the breath. Thunder pounded. A spinning gust drilled into the yard, whipping muddy dust into a vortex. Chickens went wild. Young bamboo flattened to the ground. Rudra tilted a little more, just a little, but everyone felt it was the cliff's edge. Stake 3 is all the way out, the watcher screamed. Swap rope 7, Soma shouted. Quick, a boy sprinted to gather the rope end, tripped on a mound, slammed into Rudra, and slid down. The rattan looped his wrist and yanked him dangling. Gasps erupted. Soma shot forward like an arrow, leaped onto a brace, grabbed the boy's wrist with one hand and the crossbeam with the other. The wind jerked. The brace slipped. Both of them pitched. For a moment, Soma felt like a dry leaf at a furnace mouth. Let him go, someone yelled. Let go to save your life. No. Soma snarled. I'm holding. He clenched his teeth and leaned back, using his body as an anchor. The rattan bit into the boy's wrist, leaving a purple groove. Bhavita rushed in, wrapped her woven scarf around the rope to cut the friction. Push up, she shouted. 3 others jumped in together. The boy was freed. They all tumbled into the mud. A lightning bolt speared the forest edge, purple, white, and blinding. The crack sounded like the sky breaking. Everyone faltered for half a breath. In that slack, 2 more ropes snapped in quick succession, clean, cold sounds like blades slicing sinew. Fall back, Bhavita shouted. Get ready to cut. Not yet, Thakur bellowed. 1 more step. Soma looked around, tangled lines popped stakes, mud sluicing, people panting. But Thakur's 1 more step tasted sweet to an ego in a storm. He gripped the hammer strap, 1 more cross. Move, they charged like moths to a flame. And the flame was the wind. The storm's crest hit. The rain vanished, only wind, and a roar remained. The wind lashed sideways like a horsewhip, wrenching arms backward. Dust from the yard rose in a gray column, dense and choking. People screamed without hearing their own voices. At the eye, Rudra no longer shook, it shuddered. The waist split yawned wide, exposing yellowed fibers that rasped like tearing cloth. A crossbeam snapped. The fourth stake tore free and smashed into the pavilion eaves, collapsing a corner of the roof. Standing on the brace, Soma saw it all. Through the dust, he suddenly spotted Madhuri, his mother hugging seed rice as she ran across the yard. The wind hit her. She stumbled. Soma's heart clenched. "Ma," he started to jump down. At that moment, a newly replaced rope snapped its end, slashing across his face with a searing line. He reeled, nearly falling. Bhavita screamed, "Soma, get down." No, he shot back on reflex, but his legs had gone weak. Sudama's words, "Clinging is death, letting go is breathing," boomed like thunder. A vicious gust pressed Rudra toward the group sheltering nearby. Children cried. A mother screamed, "Cut it, please." Sudama stepped into the wind, strangely slow, raising a hand as if to signal the storm to calm. Of course, the storm didn't calm. People's minds did. His voice poured into the gap that opened. Choose people or the tree. One heartbeat, just one, but enough. Soma squeezed his eyes shut. Everything called honor. Sky Pillar, never bow, in a flash, flared and went out like water-dousing flame. Before him now were his mother, the children, Bhavita, and Breath. He shouted, "Cut." The order landed like a stone in the vortex's center. Bhavita's group instantly set their machetes to the breakpoint. "Go," she called. Blades flashing with rain moved in unison. Fibers cracked and popped. "Watch the step," someone yelled. "Slide the edge down." Bhavita set the rhythm, eyes glued to the fracture line. Soma jumped off the brace and rushed people out of the fall line. "Swing left, clear the path." Thakur froze half a beat, then let out a roar, rage or release, no one knew, and shouldered a chalkstone out of the drop zone, staggering but pushing on. "Everyone back," Soma called. "Get ready to dodge," Bhavita said. A long crack like a string, pulled to the limit and snapping. Rudra's crown sagged, then collapsed onto the mud with a thud, splattering faces with brown streaks. Wind surged through the new opening and whooshed like something that had finally found a door. The remaining grove bent with the flow and grew quiet. The rope's shrieks faded. Even the wind's roar retreated by half. A strange stillness fell, silence in the heart of the storm. People could hear their own hearts beating. Then the storm changed course. No longer bottlenecked at the village gate, the wind raced along the fields, hissed through low shrubs, and dumped its fury into empty space. The rain returned gentler, like a beast leaving its cage. Bhavita collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest, laughing with tears mixed in the rain. Soma stood, heaving, blood seeping from the cut on his cheek. He looked at Rudra's fallen top, and without thinking, he bowed his head, not bowing to the storm, bowing to the truth. Thakur leaned on his cane, shoulders shaking. He walked slowly to the remaining base, laid his hand on the fresh cut, and sighed as if letting go of a lifetime's clinging. Keeping people is how we keep the village. Sudama closed his eyes for a moment and pressed his palms together. As the storm receded, his voice sounded like a wooden gong's even beat. "You've just learned how to bend without losing." That night, the gale still toyed with the fields, but in the village, people breathed again. Fires were lit under a few eaves. Hot porridge bowls passed between scraped hands. The youths bandaged one another and retold the moment of cutting, like a strange battle, yielding to strike, opening to win. Madhuri washed Soma's cheek with herbal water. her hands shaking, her voice both scolding and tender. "You almost cost me my son." Soma nestled into her shoulder like a child. "I almost lost myself, mother. I thought I was saving the village, but I was only saving the village's shadow in my mind." Bhavita stepped in with a basket of medicine. She looked at Soma, her eyes a mix of relief, anger, and a tight little ache. She sat, dabbed the wound, and whispered, "Learned to let go, have you?" Soma's smile was crooked. "If you don't let go, you break." Outside, children snored softly. The wind now sounded like a tired lullaby. From afar, the Ganges hummed in a steady bass, like the earth's long exhale. At dawn, the clouds cleared. Sunlight poured like honey over wet leaves. At the village gate where Rudra had once stood, proud, there was now open sky. The emptiness didn't make people stumble. Rather, everyone felt lighter, as if a stone blocking the doorway had been removed. Sparrows perched on the fresh stump and chirped. Tiny green shoots speckled the bamboo's base. Villagers gathered, glanced at one another shyly, then smiled. Handshakes needed no apologies. Someone mused, "Last night, if we hadn't cut." Another finished, "Then we wouldn't be standing here today." Thakur cleared his throat and turned to Sudama. "You said bend without losing. I've tried to understand it for years. Last night I understood." Sudama nodded gently. "Understanding is one thing. Living it, you all just did." Soma walked to the stump, placed his hand on the smooth cut, and closed his eyes. Images from the night, his mother. The children, Bhavita snapping ropes, popping stakes, the shout of cut, passed like a film. He spoke softly to himself, but the whole village heard. Honor isn't in standing forever. Honor is in knowing how to stand back up after bowing at the right time. Bhavita looked at the opened sky and smiled. Now there's a path for the wind and a path for new bamboo. Ananda rolled his wooden cart closer, grinning wryly. "You've just reinvented something ancient. The wind's path isn't an enemy, it's just a path." Sudama picked up a small bamboo flute and handed it to Soma. "Try blowing." Soma looked puzzled, then put it to his lips. A thin sound came out, trembling, but alive. The monk nodded. "A flute sings because it's hollow. A person rests because they let go. Last night you learned both." Soma bowed his head. This time he bowed in gratitude. At noon, as villagers began cleaning up, a new cloud crawled in from afar, light, white, gentle. No one tensed anymore. They had already left a path for things to come and go. The men sawed the fallen top into panels for drying. The women retied fences and propped thatch roofs. Children picked up bamboo joints to make flutes and ran around blowing hesitant wind notes. Soma and Bhavita walked along the bamboo line, marking frayed, rotten stalks to be cut, so the strong ones wouldn't be pulled down with them. They worked quietly, like two breaths in and out of the same lung. "Are you still mad at me?" Soma asked. "I am," Bhavita replied, eyes bright. "Mad until I see you know how to breathe. And now it's better." She rose on her toes and lightly touched the new scar on his cheek. "This mark is beautiful. It reminds you that stiffness once tried to kill you." Both of them burst out laughing, their laughter blending with the children's flute sounds. At the village edge, Sudama headed back to his hermitage. He stopped, looked at a fresh bamboo shoot, and murmured as if speaking to the sprout, "Grow up, but remember to bow." Above, the wind passed unhurriedly, brushing the leaves, making a rustle, like someone tapping time in, out letting go, holding, bowing, standing. And for the first time, Satavana listened to the wind without fear. The first light of morning spilled through a thin veil of clouds, shining on Sadhavana, which still smelled of mud and crushed bamboo leaves. Roosters crowed hesitant, as if unsure the storm had truly passed. People opened their doors, one by one, stepped into their yards, and looked at each other with eyes both tired and relieved. At the village gate, the open patch where old bamboo Rudra once stood tall, now lay bare under the new sun. Only the old stump remained, its smooth cut glistening with dried sap like tears that had stopped. Around it, broken branches were scattered, but at the roots, young bamboo already dotted green sharp shoots piercing up from damp soil. Soma sat on the pavilion steps, dried blood streaking his cheek, dark circles under sleepless eyes. In his hands was the flute Sudama had given him the night before. He hadn't dared to blow it yet. The wind from last night, the sound of snapping rattan, the cry of cut still thundered in his head. Bhavita came over with a pot of hot porridge. She handed him a bamboo bowl, her voice gentle, "Eat Soma. Last night we survived. That's what matters most." Soma smiled crookedly. But Rudra is gone. The wild horse, then the bamboo. Why do the things we treat as supports keep disappearing? Bhavita looked straight into his eyes. Maybe because we need to learn to find another kind of support, not in outer things, but in the way we know how to let go. At noon, Soma went to Sudama's bamboo hermitage. The small hut nestled by a stream shaded by whispering young bamboo. The old monk sat on the porch, rolling his beads, eyes kind, yet deep. Soma knelt. "Venerable sir, last night I shouted, 'Cut!' My heart is heavy. I feel like I betrayed the village's honor." Sudama looked at him and nodded slightly. "You didn't betray, you saved. If you hadn't shouted 'Cut!' we might not be sitting peacefully eating porridge today. You chose people over the tree. That is the wisdom of letting go." But Soma hesitated. "Why do I still feel pain?" Sudama picked up a tender bamboo leaf and lifted it. "Pain is natural. When the tree breaks, our hearts crack too. But do you see this leaf? It's newly sprouted, fragile, yet it continues the clump's life. Impermanence isn't for despair. It's for understanding. Every break opens space for something new to grow." He plucked the leaf and dropped it into the stream. The current carried it away, leaving the surface calm. See, letting the leaf go makes the stream clear. Letting the past go lets the heart breathe. Soma watched in silence, eyes growing moist. Sudama asked Soma to sit. "Close your eyes. Listen to your breath." At first, Soma heard his heart pounding. The storm's wind pushed in the snap of ropes, people shouting. But Sudama's voice was steady. "Don't drive them away. Let them come, then go like clouds. Just watch the breath in and out." After a while, Soma felt his breathing grow lighter. For a moment, the rush of images faded. Only the sound of the stream and the gentle wind through the young bamboo remained. He sighed and a tear slipped down his cheek. "How do you feel?" Sudama asked. "I feel lighter, like there's a path for wind in my chest." Exactly, Sudama smiled. Letting go isn't giving up. Letting go is opening a door. The wind will pass through. The breath will live. In the days that followed, Soma returned to the village with a different heart. He no longer pushed people to lash ropes and plant stakes. Instead, he walked the bamboo rows with them, cutting old and broken stalks, opening gaps for the wind to pass. At first, some objected, "Cut too much and the fence will be open. What if the cattle get in?" Soma answered calmly, "If the fence is too solid, the wind grabs it again." Space is what lets us breathe. The storm night taught us that. People nodded. The more they worked, the lighter the earth felt, and their hearts too. Children gathered broken bamboo tinkered with flutes and blew hesitant but cheerful tunes. Bhavita looked at Soma and saw his eyes had changed no longer, blazing with defiance, but shining soft like late afternoon sun. One evening, Soma went to see Elder Thakur. The old man still sat by a bamboo root face, pensive. "Sir, I know you're still upset that Rudra was cut," Soma said. Thakur sighed. "I'm sad, not angry. That tree stood before I was born. I thought it would stand forever." Soma sat beside him, voice low. "I thought so too. But last night I realized honor isn't in bamboo standing forever. Honor is in us keeping each other alive." Thakur was silent. After a while, he pushed himself up with his cane, eyes moist. "Maybe. This old man has to learn to bow too. The bamboo broke, but the people remain. That is the village." They looked together at the new green shoots. In the weeks that followed, Satavana changed. They no longer poured effort into re-raising the fallen sky pillar, but redesigned the bamboo fence in a crisscross weave to give the wind a path. The elders called it a breathing fence. At night, when the wind blew, the bamboo no longer screamed in pain. It hummed like a giant flute. Villagers sat by their hearths listening and felt at peace. Soma became a guide, but he no longer barked orders. He listened, then planned with everyone. Bhavita stood beside him, adding her voice, eyes full of trust. Children grew up with the bamboo's murmur and no longer feared dark clouds. One morning, Soma returned to the bamboo hermitage and knelt before Sudama. "Venerable sir, I've seen it. Cling and you break. Let go and you remain. Please give me one last reminder." Sudama handed him a young bamboo sprig. "Take it home. Whenever you feel yourself hardening, look at this sprig. It's supple because it's hollow and can bend. People are the same. You've begun to let go, but remember, letting go is every day." Soma pressed his palms together. "I understand." He took the sprig home and placed it by the well. Villagers smiled. It was a new symbol, not an unmoving sky pillar, but a bowing sprout. That afternoon, Bhavita and Soma sat on the porch listening to children play flutes made from broken bamboo. She whispered, "See, sometimes breaking sings better than standing stiff." Soma nodded, eyes distant. "Right. Breaking opens a path for the flute. Letting go opens a path for life." Morning light poured gold over the spot where Rudra once stood. Now there was only the old stump surrounded by fresh green shoots. Children ran about with flutes made from the broken bamboo. Their music was clumsy and flickering, yet clear and bright, ringing through the village like newborn laughter after a season of storms. The people of Satavana gathered around the open space. The tension between the keep and cut factions was gone. Instead, they spoke calmly, eyes softened. The storm's wounds still marked their hands and cheeks, but inside, one thing had healed the division. Thakur, the elder who had fiercely defended the sky pillar, shuffled out with his cane and looked at the stump. He sighed, his hoarse voice low. "All my life, I believed strength meant never bowing. But that night when I saw the children trembling, I understood. Strength means keeping them safe. The bamboo broke, but the village remains. And that is victory." No one argued. They simply bowed their heads and quietly absorbed the truth he had spoken. Soma stepped forward, holding the small flute Sudama had given him the day before. He looked around and saw his mother Bhavita and the faces lined by smoke and storm. Everyone he said voiced deep, yet clear after the storm. I learned something. We don't lose when we bow. We only lose when we cling to what is already broken. Rudra broke, but because we cut, because we let go, we are still here, still breathing, still seeing new shoots. So what is truly precious? The bamboo, or us ourselves? A middle-aged man nodded. That night, if we'd kept holding on, my children might not be here to hear you. I get it now. Letting go is how we keep. Soma lifted the flute and blew a short note. It wasn't round, but it sounded like a breath. He smiled. A flute sings because it's hollow. Bamboo lives because it's hollow. A person who lets go is free. Murmurs turned into relieved sighs. Some wiped away tears. Sudama stepped forward, palms together, his voice as deep as a temple bell. My children, the storm is a stern teacher. It shows us unvarnished truth. Impermanence is the eternal law. Bamboo greens then ages, stands then breaks. People live then die. No one can resist it. Letting go is the path. When you cling to the tree, its breaking will break your hearts. When you let go, the wind has a way through, and your hearts have space to breathe. He looked at the empty space where Rudra had stood. This emptiness is a reminder. Nothing stands forever. But in that emptiness, new shoots grow. Just as in suffering, there is a chance to awaken. The villagers pressed their palms together. The children stopped playing and stood still, eyes wide. That afternoon, Thakur invited Bhavita and the former cut group to his home. He poured water and spoke sincerely. That day I was hot-blooded and said, "You were betraying us if you cut. Now I apologize. You're the ones who saved the village." Bhavita bowed. "You don't need to apologize. Without you, we wouldn't have dared act. Your decisiveness made us realize a firm decision was needed. Each side contributed." They looked at each other and laughed. Laughter filled the old house, blowing away the dust of resentment. That night, Soma and Bhavita walked along the river. The Ganges still rolled, but gentler after the storm. Bhavita, Soma said softly, "Thank you. Without you, I might have died with Rudra." Bhavita smiled warm. "You didn't die. You learned to bow. And from that bow, you truly grew." They fell silent, listening to the water. Then Bhavita added quietly, "Honor isn't standing rigid. Honor is choosing life." Soma nodded, a new peace shining in his eyes. From then on, the people of Satavana established a custom. Each year on the first windy day of the season, they gathered at Rudra's stump, lit incense, and played flutes made from broken bamboo together. They called it the Day of Letting Go. Children were taught. A flute sounds beautiful because it's hollow. People are at peace because they know how to let go. Elders retold. There was a night when our village chose to cut in order to remain. The flute's notes rang long, not to mourn, but to remind everything is impermanent. Yet within impermanence there is peace, if we know how to let go. At that village meeting, golden dusk spread across the pavilion yard, laying a gentle glow over faces once etched with storm worry. Everyone sat in a circle perfectly still, waiting for Monk Sudama's words. The old man in brown robes, thin but kind-eyed, pressed his palms together and spoke in a warm, resonant voice that rang through the quiet, like a bell, striking the heart. "You have seen," Sudama said slowly. "Bamboo that bends does not lose. Bamboo that breaks is not lost. People are the same. We often fear that bowing is weakness, that losing something means we have nothing. But the storm taught us to bow at the right time, is to know how to live, and to break in the right place, is to let another life emerge." Life is not about holding tight forever, but about knowing when to let go. He pointed to the empty space where Rudra once stood. The old stalk has fallen, but look, new shoots are rising. This is impermanence. Nothing lasts yet. The new always follows the old. Impermanence isn't something to fear. It's a reminder. Live awake in each moment, because nothing guarantees today will match tomorrow. Sudama paused, his eyes seeming to see into each person. What makes us suffer isn't impermanence. It's clinging. Clinging that the tree must stand forever, that honor must be as hard as stone, that nothing is allowed to change. When the bamboo broke, our pain wasn't because of the bamboo. It was because we wouldn't release the image of unchanging bamboo in our hearts. If we let go, the wind finds a way, and the mind finds a breath. When we let go, we are free. His words fell into the silence and rippled outward. From afar, the temple bell tolled, each tone extending his message and deepening the solemnity of the moment. Everyone bowed, not from compulsion, but because their hearts had lightened. In that bow was a new understanding. They no longer feared the wind, nor did they mourn Rudra. They had learned that true strength isn't in futile resistance, but in knowing how to bow, to break, to let go. That was the moment Satavana turned a page, a village no longer bound to the shadow of its past, but open to welcoming each wind as a companion. On another morning, as Soma and Bhavita passed the market, they saw an old potter turning his wheel. The clay spun soft beneath his hands, becoming a pot. Villagers gathered admiring. The potter smiled and said, "Clay must be soft to form a pot. A pot must be hollow to hold rice. Too hard and it cracks. Too solid and it's useless." Hearing this, Soma glanced at Bhavita, and both laughed. They knew a new lesson was arriving. And so, after the story, the bamboo that broke in the wind, Satavana's journey opened into another tale, the potter and the clay pot. The story of the potter and the clay pot. The sun rose over the banks of the Ganges, its first light like a ribbon of gold, unfurling across thatched roofs, still damp with dew. Sparrows chirped, the thud of rice pounding echoed from a corner of the village, mingling with the calls of an early vegetable seller. After the storm season, Satavana had come back to life, the scent of fresh earth and warm kitchen smoke drifting everywhere. At the edge of the village, along the dirt path leading to the river, stood an old pottery kiln. Day after day, it gave off the smell of damp clay mixed with coal smoke. Its owner was Danu, a man past 60, tall and thin hair, salt and pepper hands, calloused, yet so skilled that villagers often said clay in Danu's hands turns into a treasure. In front of the kiln, pots, jars, and kettles stood in long rows. All were round and sturdy, without a single crack. Danu was famous across the region for his strictness. If a pot had even the smallest crack, he smashed it without a second thought, no matter the effort already spent. Beside him was Kiran, a 17-year-old orphan, taken in by Danu as an apprentice. Quick and bright-eyed, Kiran often asked questions that both annoyed and amused his teacher. One morning, just after sunrise, Kiran pulled a large pot from the kiln. It was beautiful, an even rim, a rounded form, but a hairline crack ran down its side. He exclaimed, "Master, this pot is still usable, isn't it? It's only slightly cracked. It won't make much difference." Danu came over, eyes sharp as a blade. He lifted the pot, examined it, then said sternly, "No, A crack means it's ruined. A buyer can't take a cracked pot home. It'll shatter with hot water. It'll leak when holding food. No one accepts something that isn't whole. Kiran protested. But Master, not everyone needs a pot for cooking rice. Some could use it to store grain or to plant flowers. Why not sell it for less instead of smashing it? Danu furrowed his brow and said no more. He raised a wooden stick and struck. Crack. The pot shattered, shards flying. He sighed. Kiran, you must understand, a potter's honor isn't in how many pots he sells, but in the quality of each one. I've done this all my life. I won't let a crack stain it. Kiran fell silent, but inside a doubt stirred. Are all things with cracks truly worthless? Just then footsteps and a voice called out Danu. I've come for my pots. It was Sujata, a 40-ish widow, thin but steady-eyed. She often ordered pots from the kiln. She supported 3 children by brewing rice liquor. Danu greeted her warmly. Sujata, perfect timing. I've just finished a new firing. Every pot is solid, no cracks guaranteed. Sujata smiled. Our potter is always so particular. I only hope for pots that hold, that don't break. Kiran glanced at the still warm shards. A question rose in him, but before he could speak, Danu had already wrapped 3 large pots and set them on Sujata's carrying pole. When Sujata disappeared down the dirt path, Kiran sighed. Master, if she knew we just smashed a pot that still worked, she'd be sorry. Danu scowled. What good is today's regret if it costs tomorrow's honor? Remember, Kiran, once cracked, even a little sooner or later, it will split wide. That afternoon, Master and apprentice went to the river to dig clay. Kiran couldn't hold back any longer and asked, Master, I don't understand. Why so rigid? A small crack doesn't have to be the end. Danu leaned on his shovel, eyes on the reddish water. You're young. You don't know yet. I've seen countless cracked pots. First they seep a little, then the crack widens, then they break. People blame the potter more than the clay, so I never let a cracked pot out. Kiran watched the ripples and whispered, but I think some cracks can live another life. Like broken bamboo still becoming flutes, like someone who's suffered being able to love more. Danu looked at him, half fond, half annoyed. You've read too many Zen tales. Life isn't only philosophy, it's food and clothing. If you want to be a good craftsman, remember, the pot must be sound. On the way back, they met Ravata, an old monk who often came to the village for alms. He leaned on a bamboo staff, walked unhurriedly, eyes kind, but deep. Seeing them, he stopped and smiled. Greetings to the master potter and the bright apprentice. Danu bowed respectfully. Sir, you've gone far today. Ravata replied. I travel from village to village, seeing many pots and jars. Some whole, some cracked, some broken. But I think at times, a cracked pot teaches us more than a perfect one. Danu paused, frowning. Venerable sir, how could a cracked pot teach anyone? It's useless, fit only to be tossed. Ravata didn't argue. He only smiled gently. Perhaps. But who knows, if one day a cracked pot saves a thirsty soul, you might think differently. He walked on, leaving the 2 by the river, each weighed down by a different thought. That night in their small hut, Kiran lay listening to insects and the lingering smell of fired clay. He recalled Ravata's words, then glanced at his teacher, still tapping lightly on a fresh pot, as if to make sure it was perfect. Master, Kiran called softly. What is it? If one day we ourselves are like a pot with a crack in the heart, would you smash us too? Danu started, but didn't answer. He sat silent a long time, eyes on the flickering flame. At last, he murmured, "People are different, Kiran, but I hope to go my whole life without a crack." Kiran turned toward the dark and whispered, "I think it's the crack that lets the light in." The next morning, the village prepared for the seasonal festival. Villagers flocked to order pots and jars. Danu anxiously checked every piece, smashing anything even slightly off. Kiran quietly saved one cracked pot and hid it behind the kiln. A growing curiosity filled his heart. Could a cracked pot hold a different kind of value? The sky was high and blue, but somewhere along the clouds, a faint gray streak lurked. It seemed to foretell that the story of the potter and the clay pot had only just begun. After the storm season, Satavana bustled with preparations for the festival. It was the most important time of year, when people offered to the Buddha and their ancestors, giving thanks for crops preserved through tempests. Every household needed pots, jars, and kettles for brewing, liquor, cooking rice, and storing water. Danu's kiln had never been busier. People lined up carrying baskets of grain, vegetables, or chickens to trade for pots. A burly man set down his yoke and called out, "Danu, I need 5 big pots for brewing. Don't give me any chipped ones." Danu answered firmly, "Don't worry. Any pot leaving my hands is solid as stone. If there's a crack, it won't escape my eye." Standing nearby, Kiran frowned slightly. He remembered the cracked pot he'd hidden and wondered, is it truly useless? At noon, while unloading a fresh firing, Kiran found several pots with hairline cracks circling the rim. He cried out, "Master, these have slight cracks, but they're still usable, I think." Danu stepped over, inspected them closely, and shook his head. "No. A crack means it's ruined. A small crack can become a big break. It can't be saved." He raised his stick to smash. Kiran shouted, "Wait. If it's for storing rice or dry grain, it doesn't need to be watertight. Why not let poor villagers have them? They can't afford new ones." Danu's face darkened. "No, Kiran. People will say, 'This is a pot by Danu the potter.' If it breaks, they won't blame the pot, they'll blame the craftsman. Honor is worth more than food." And the crack of the blow rang out. The pot shattered. Kiran swallowed hard, bent to pick up the shards, sadness flickering in his eyes. That afternoon, Sujata returned for more pots. Seeing Danu about to smash another cracked one, she quickly stopped him. "Master Danu, why smash it? It can still be used. My family is poor. A pot like that is enough. Even cracked it can still cook rice." Danu said sternly, "No, I won't let you use a cracked pot. I'd rather give you a smaller new one." Hands on hips, eyes blazing. Sujata replied, "Sir, rice isn't always cooked in perfect pots. My life has cracked 100 times, yet I still raised 3 children. If you think cracks make things useless, I suppose I should have been thrown out long ago." Her words startled Kiran and left Danu quiet for a moment. But he remained firm. "Sujata, you have your reasoning. I have my principles. A cracked pot does not leave this kiln." Sujata pouted, hoisted the new pot, and as she left, muttered, "Sometimes the greatest crack is stubbornness itself." That night, after his master slept, Kiran slipped to the kiln and took the cracked pot with the fine fissure. He carried it to the little garden behind the house, filled it with soil, and planted a green bean. Day by day, the bean sprouted and grew lush. Water seeped through the crack, moistening the surrounding soil. Within weeks, tender grass and a few wild greens sprouted around the cracked pot. Watching, Kiran whispered, "Maybe Master hasn't seen it yet, but this very crack is watering the ground around it. One morning, Ravata stopped by the kiln. He noticed Kiran fussing over pots and asked, "You look troubled." Kiran told him about the smashed pot and Sujata's protest. Ravata nodded and smiled. A potter guarding his honor is right, but as you see, a cracked pot can still make the earth green. Sometimes what's imperfect carries a different value. Kiran hesitated. "But if I say that Master will scold me?" Ravata smiled gently. "No need to argue. Let the truth speak. One day the cracked pot will speak for you." As more people ordered pots, the pressure mounted. Danu grew stricter, smashing many with cracks. Villagers began to murmur, "He's too rigid. We need pots, not his honor." But admit it, Danu's pots never break. Praise on one side, resentment on the other. Kiran grew increasingly uneasy. One day he dared to ask his master directly, "Master, are you more afraid of people's ridicule than concerned about their empty stomachs?" Danu froze, eyes angry. "Kiran, you're still a child, don't try to school your teacher. I've lived my whole life by this principle. If I let it go, what would I have left?" Kiran lowered his head, not daring to speak again. But inside he whispered, "Maybe the master himself is a cracked pot, trying to pretend it's perfect." Those days, the sky turned stifling, heralding the dry season. The Ganges receded, the water pulling back to reveal a gravel bed. The whole village discussed storing water for the drought. Everyone needed pots and jars. Danu anxiously fired hundreds more new pots, inspecting them, carefully determined not to let a single crack slip through. But in the garden corner, Kiran quietly tended the green beans in the cracked pot. Watching the shoots reach upward, a hard-to-name feeling rose in him. Perhaps one day the crack would save the whole village. That summer came harsher than ever. The sky was a silent blue without a wisp of cloud. The once surging Ganges shrank to reveal blotched white sandbars. Fields split open with cracks, gaunt buffaloes lay sighing in the shade. In Satavana, sighs outnumbered laughter. Everyone worried how would they keep water through the drought. Crowds swarmed Danu's kiln. "Master Danu, sell me 3 more jars. My whole household is parched. The kiln has to work all night, or we'll die." Danu scowled, yet he still checked each pot. If one had the slightest rim crack, he raised his stick and smashed it. Kiran panicked. "Master, wait. People are thirsty. Why are you still breaking them?" "No." Danu's voice was hard. "A cracked pot can't hold water. Letting them use it is killing them." Villagers muttered in dissatisfaction. "He only cares about his reputation. Even a cracked pot can hold some. We're dying of thirst. Who cares about honor anymore?" One sweltering afternoon, while a fresh firing cooled in the kiln, the ground suddenly trembled. A small earthquake, but enough to make the whole kiln shudder. The sound of clay cracking popped like breaking bones. When they opened the kiln, Kiran went numb. Nearly half the pots were cracked. Some with hairline fissures, some veined like spider webs. Villagers cried out, "Oh no, what will we use to store water?" Kiran clutched his head. "Master, we can't discard them all. The village will die of thirst." Danu's face flushed. "No, smash them all. I'd rather lose everything than have people say my pots are cracked." He lifted the mallet to bring it down, but his hand trembled because of the desperate eyes in front of him. Right then, Sujata stepped forward. Thin, gray-haired, yet her voice rang out. "Danu, look, our whole village is thirsty. We don't need perfect pots, we need water. When you smash pots, you smash our hope." Danu stiffened. But if they're cracked, they'll leak, they'll break. Sujata stepped up and placed her hand on a cracked pot. You think I've never cracked? When my husband died, my heart split. But because of that crack, I learned how to love and raise 3 children. The crack didn't kill me. It saved me. The village fell silent. Thirsty eyes lit with hope. Kiran suddenly remembered the cracked pot where he'd planted beans. He ran to the garden and brought it out. The bean plant stood lush and tall. Around the pot, the soil was damp and grass had greened. Look, Kiran shouted. This crack didn't kill the plant. It made the whole patch live. If we use cracked pots to carry water, it'll leak along the way, but it will moisten the ground green. The vegetables make flowers bloom. Even if it can't hold full, it still nourishes life. People gasped. An elderly man said, trembling, maybe the crack itself will save this drought. The villagers conferred and decided to use the cracked pots too. They carried them to the well, drew water, and accepted that it would seep out along the path. Indeed, along the footpath from the well to the village, dry fissures darkened with moisture. Weeds revived, greens sprouted again. Children cheered. The water is running along the cracks. The plants are drinking. People now had water to drink and vegetables to eat. Satavana escaped despair. But in the dim hut, Danu sat alone, head bowed. He whispered, all my life, I believed cracks were useless, and now it's the cracked pots that saved the village. Then what does my honor mean? Kiran walked in and set a hand on his teacher's shoulder. Master, I never thought you were wrong. I only thought you hadn't seen it all. A sound pot holds water for one household, but a cracked pot waters an entire path. Danu looked up, eyes reddened. The next day, the monk Rivata arrived. He saw the villagers rejoicing because water seeping along the path had revived the land. Smiling, he looked at Danu, well, Potter. Are cracks useless? Danu bowed his head, voice hoarse. Venerable sir, I clung to one belief my whole life. Now I see it shattered. I am like a cracked pot myself, not sure if I'm of any use. Rivata nodded. That's right. You are a cracked pot. And thanks to the crack in your belief, light is entering. Impermanence doesn't kill us, clinging does. Let go, and you'll find freedom. The whole village sat quietly listening to the wind slip through the cracks in the earthen walls, sounding like the old monk's words. That night, the full moon shone on the road from the well to the village. Along the way, strips of tender green glimmered silver. Children ran and played. Adults laughed in relief. Danu stood by the eaves looking at the cracked pot where Kiran had planted beans and softly said, perhaps a crack isn't an end. A crack is another path. For the first time, the old hardness in him fractured, and from that fracture, a new softness began. The first sunlight after a cool night fell on Satavana. The air felt unlike the stifling days. Just past the earth had eased, thanks to the water that seeped from cracked pots. The plants were greener, and children's laughter rang along the well. Danu sat at the kiln's threshold, his rough hands resting on his knees. He gazed at the dirt road where green streaks stretched along the footpath. He felt both relieved that the village was saved and pained, that his lifelong belief had been shaken. Kiran approached carefully, setting a bowl of hot porridge before his teacher. Please eat, master. You didn't sleep all night. Today the villagers will come to thank you. Danu looked up and gave a wry smile. Thank me, no. They should thank the cracked pots. I only wanted to smash them. Kiran sat down, eyes bright. But those very cracks watered the earth. Don't you see what we thought useless became salvation? At noon, the monk Ravata stopped by the hermitage beside the kiln. He came with staff in hand, walking unhurriedly, eyes gentle like the Ganges' surface. Villagers gathered around. Ravata looked at Danu Potter. Why does the village have water today? Because of what? Danu bowed his head, voice hoarse. Venerable sir, not because of me, because of the cracked pots. I don't know what to believe anymore. Ravata smiled and laid a hand on his shoulder. Believe in impermanence. Nothing stays perfect forever. The pot is cracked, yet that crack opens another way to live. People are the same wounds, can become places where light enters. An old woman in the crowd shed tears. That's true, venerable sir. When my husband died, my heart cracked. But because of that, I learned to love my children more. Without the crack, I would never have understood compassion. Ravata nodded. You see, impermanence doesn't threaten us. Clinging does. When we let go, we're free. That night, Danu didn't light the kiln. He sat quietly by the wheel hands on a lump of soft clay. Kiran sat beside him, waiting. Danu spoke softly. Kiran, all my life I've thrown sturdy pots. I hated cracks, but now I want to make a different pot. How different? It doesn't need to be perfect. Only honest. If it cracks, I'll let it live with that crack. Master and apprentice turned the wheel together. Wet clay slid beneath their hands and formed a round pot. Danu didn't try to hide the clay's grain, didn't strive to polish it smooth. When it leaned a little, he left it that way. Kiran watched. Moved, Master. This is the first time I've seen you be gentle with the clay. Danu smiled. Perhaps I've just learned to bow my head. When the pot dried, Danu took a bamboo splint and carved on its side. To know how to let go is to know how to live. He called the villagers and placed that pot at the communal well. From now on, this will be the village's pot. It may crack, it may chip. As long as it still holds, it still lives, just like us. Children ran their fingers over the words, sounding them out. The adults looked at each other, their hearts easing. Even Thakur, the once severe elder, stepped forward. Leaning on his staff, he looked at the carved pot and sighed. Danu, I once blamed you for being rigid. Now I see you as brave. Bravery isn't holding on forever. It's daring to release an old belief. Danu bowed. I'm not brave. The drought taught me. The cracks taught me. From then on, villagers no longer saw cracked pots as useless. They used them to plant as basins for watering flowers, as incense holders during festivals. Broken pots were ground into clay powder and mixed into garden beds. Satavana bustled, no more arguments. People reminded one another, don't fear cracks. Life spreads from the cracks. Every day, Kiran tended the bean plant in that first cracked pot. The vine climbed, the trellis bloomed and set pods. He watched and held fast to the lesson. Nothing is useless when we know how to let go. One evening, the villagers gathered around the fire. Danu stood, voice trembling yet steady. Everyone, I clung to perfection my whole life. I thought keeping pots whole was keeping my honor. But the recent drought showed me clinging to what's whole can cost us everything, while letting a crack be can save a village. From now on, if you see a cracked pot, don't rush to scorn it. Ask instead, what other life can it still live? Applause broke out. Sujata stepped forward, her eyes bright with conviction. Master Danu, because of you, we've learned that even when we ourselves are cracked, We're still worthy. We are grateful to you." Tears fell from Danu's eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt his tears weren't from shame, but from relief. The next morning, Danu handed Kiran the potter's stick and said, "From now on, shape clay with your whole heart, not just your hands. Don't fear cracks and don't chase perfection. Let the clay live its life and let you live yours." Kiran bowed. "I will remember, Master. I will shape pots that know how to let go." The wind blew through the kiln, slipping through the tiny gaps, sounding like a new melody, the sound of freedom. The drought had receded and the sky turned clear. Sadhavana bustled as it prepared for the seasonal festival, a time to give thanks to heaven and earth and honor the ancestors. Everywhere flags were hung, lamps were lit, and drums boomed. Villagers brought out new pots, but strangely this time, they also brought cracked pots. A child shouted while running past the village hall, "Look, my mom brought a chipped pot to put flowers in." Someone else replied, "I brought a cracked pot to the well to make a water dish for the birds." No one mocked it anymore. Instead, the whole village saw it as a symbol, a reminder of the days of thirst and the lesson they had learned together. At the center of the festival stood the pot Danu and Kiran had carved with the words, "Knowing how to let go is knowing how to live." It was placed in honor by the communal well, with sprigs of young bamboo and wildflowers tucked around its neck. Children ran in circles, sounding out each word. Adults bowed and offered incense before the pot, as if before a silent teacher. Danu stood nearby, his hands trembling. Sujata approached her, voice low and warm. "See, in the past, when you smashed cracked pots, the whole village blamed you. Now you let them live, and the whole village is grateful." Danu nodded, a tear glistening at the corner of his eye. "I only wish I had learned this lesson sooner, but perhaps impermanence also needs time for us to mature." That afternoon, the villagers gathered in the hall. The monk Rivata was invited to say a few words. Leaning on his staff, he stepped into the circle of people. "My children," his voice rang out, gentle yet resonant. "Today I see many cracked pots brought forth. That is something wondrous, because it reminds us that impermanence is the truth. Every pot will break, every person will age. Letting go is the path when we cling to wholeness. We hurt when it cracks. But when we know how to release, we find another way of living right within that crack." He pointed toward the carved pot. "You have seen how from those cracks water flowed to nourish the plants and save the village. So remember, life does not demand that we be perfect. It asks that we know how to let go so that life can spread." The villagers were silent, then bowed in unison. The distant temple bell sounded lingering in the evening wind, as if affirming the lesson. After the talk, Danu stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Everyone, I was rigid all my life. I thought preserving perfection preserved my honor. But because of that, I almost cost the whole village its life. Without Sujata Kiran and those cracked pots, we wouldn't be standing here today. I bow in thanks and in apology." A round of applause rose up. Thakur the elder came forward with his staff, smiling kindly. "Danu, you don't need to apologize. You've taught us another lesson. No one is too old to learn to let go." The whole village laughed, not to mock, but to share their relief. That night, as the bonfire blazed, people set out food and wine. The cracked pots were used as flower vases, incense holders, ash containers. Some even became drums for the children to beat. Everyone found joy in imperfection. Kiran sat beside his master watching the children laugh. He whispered, "See, master, it's the crack that makes the sound." Danu nodded, replying slowly, "Yes, just as it's the crack in our hearts that lets the light in." The next morning, before the festival ended, Danu handed Kiran a bamboo stylus and said, "From now on, you'll carry on my craft. But remember, don't carry it on with rigidity. Shape with a heart that knows how to let go. Each pot doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be honest." Kiran pressed his palms together. "I promise. I will remember the lesson of the cracked pot." Ravada stood nearby, smiling. "That is how wisdom is passed on, not through what never breaks, but through how we rise after we have cracked." As the festival drew to a close, the full moon hung overhead, shining down on the hall and the village well, where the pot engraved with "Knowing how to let go is knowing how to live" was placed in honor. The people of Satavana, from old to young, gathered around the well, hands clasped, eyes bright, as though they had just weathered a great trial. Crickets sang in the grass. Wind moved through the young bamboo. Everything seemed to join in that solemn moment. Danu, the old potter, stepped into the circle. He stood tall, his eyes lit with a clarity he'd never had before. His voice was clear and strong, yet warm, like a message spoken straight from the heart. "We have learned a simple yet profound truth. Bamboo can break in the wind pots, can crack in the fire, and people can ache through life's upheavals. Impermanence spares no one. It is not something to fear, but the very nature of life. And within those cracks, another way of living can open. When we know how to let go, we do not lose everything. On the contrary, we open a path for new life to emerge, for love and understanding to spread." He paused, letting his gaze rest on each face, elders lined with wrinkles, thin women, innocent children. He smiled, speaking slowly, words cut deep. "Do not be afraid of your own cracks. Do not be ashamed of life's broken places. It is precisely those cracks that make us more human, that teach us to love one another more. A crack is where the light enters, where softness becomes strength." The hall fell utterly silent. Then from afar, the temple bell rang its tone, stretching through the night, mingling with the drifting wind. That sound seemed to hold everything, as if heaven and earth affirmed that the seeds of impermanence and letting go had been planted in every heart. The villagers bowed together, unprompted, all breathing in the same rhythm. In that moment, they understood: a cracked pot, a broken bamboo, a heart that has suffered. Any of these can be a teacher if we know how to bow and let go at the right time. And from that day on, Satavana no longer saw cracks as shameful, but as proof that within impermanence, human kindness and life always find a way to sprout. Late at night, when everyone had gone home, Danu sat alone before the kiln. He looked into the glowing embers and saw the pots that had once broken, once cracked, once saved the village. He whispered, "Thank you, cracks. You have taught me how to live." Kiran came in and sat beside him, eyes bright. In the corner, a new clay pot was half formed. He spun the wheel and smiled. "Master, tomorrow I'll make another pot, but this time I'll leave more emptiness, because I think it's the emptiness that holds the most." Danu nodded. He felt lighter than ever. From afar, the wind blew across the fields, carrying the scent of damp earth and water. Satavana slept peacefully, hearts at ease, after a season of learning a great lesson: impermanence and letting go. Looking back at the 4 Zen stories we've just traveled through, we can see a red thread running through them. Each leads us back to the truth of impermanence and the practice of letting go. In the Shattered Jade Vase, Rahula understood that value doesn't lie in external things, but in the ability to let go so the heart doesn't truly lose. In The Wild Horse in the Village, the people learned that blessing or disaster isn't fixed. Clinging in the mind is what makes us suffer. Letting go brings peace. The bamboo that broke in the wind shows that strength isn't in standing forever, but in knowing when to bend and give the wind a way through. Breaking isn't an end, but the opening of a new life. And finally, in The Potter and the Clay Pot, a crack once deemed useless became the salvation of the whole village. A crack, if we know how to look, is where light and life enter. 4 stories, 4 mirrors, reminding us that no one escapes loss, breaking, or wounds. But impermanence isn't a sentence, it's a chance to awaken. And letting go isn't abandonment, it's how we clear the way for greater peace and wisdom. This is the very heart of the Buddha's teaching. See the truth clearly. Do not cling and live freely in every breath. We often say, no pain, no gain, no growth without pain. The Dharma goes further. Suffering itself, the crack itself, impermanence itself, if we know how to let go, can become the soil where compassion and wisdom grow. If these stories touched your heart, please keep sowing seeds of mindfulness with us. Subscribe to the Buddhism Seeds channel, hit like, share this video with loved ones, and leave a comment below. Which of the 4 stories made you reflect the most? Who knows, through your sincere sharing, a seed of insight may be planted in the heart of someone who needs it. And then together, we can make this world gentler, deeper, and more full of love.